because we're supposed to be on time, I won't do what I often do in other occasions and read it through for you first. So we are a bit, this is time sensitive, so I need to get going. And yeah, I know. This is entitled The Zendradon Awakening. The Esha Ra Rushate Kemlatir Initiation, opening of the Moda Adure ducts for electrical zendradon cell, 12.5 through 11.5 initiation. You are current with your preparation, because I know what you've been doing today. And we will begin. Step 1, releasing the zendradon seal, K12, chakra 10, 6 inches above the head. And if you'll focus, please, on the code, which we, for short, we call it the Chem code, short for Kemalatea code, part of its name. Just focus gently, soften your gaze on the code. Okay, just take 3 gentle, long, deep breaths while you're gazing at the code. And on the final one, draw the code slowly and gently and gracefully with a strong, deep inhale into the Ra center. I suggest you bring it in through the pineal and move it down to the Ra center from there on a 48-petal lotus inhale. So firmly and deeply use the breath to draw the Chem code on the inhale from the Ra up to the pineal. And then exhale slowly into the pineal, allowing the exhale breath to expand the Chem code outward from the pineal, forming a 3-dimensional Chem code sphere entirely around your head, extending outwards about 3 inches in diameter all around. And don't forget under your chin as well. Now inhale slowly and firmly into the pineal on a single point axis, using the inhale breath to secure an energetic hold on the inside skin of the Chem code sphere around your head. Do not contract the Chem code sphere with the inhale, just secure a hold on the inside layer of the sphere itself. So inhale slowly and firmly into the pineal on a single point axis. Use the breath to secure an energetic hold on the inside of the skin of the Chem code, all around your head. Hold the inhale for a moment. Then exhale sharply and quickly downward, using the breath to rapidly draw the Chem code sphere down into the Mahadra point at chakra 13, earth core. Hold the breath. Hold that exhale out, bottom of the inhale at earth's core, and observe that the Chem code sphere is now centered around the Mahadra and has begun to emit a series of complex digital light tones as it communicates its instructions to the Mahadra and the Rusheta spiral. Now inhale gently and slowly, a single point breath into the Mahadra, and hold this breath at the top of the inhale. Long, slow, deep breath, and hold at the top. Hold and build charge. Hold and build charge. In a moment, we'll exhale forcefully downward from the Mahadra into chakra 15 in deep space on the other side of the earth, as it were. And when you've done that, you'll hold at the bottom of the exhale with your attention focused on the Chem code sphere at the Mahadra. So, forceful downward exhale from through the Mahadra into chakra 14 in deep space. Hold the bottom of the exhale with your attention focused on the Chem code at the Mahadra. Observe now that as you sit in the inner silence of the exhale breath pause, the Chem code sphere begins to emit a high-pitched, soft whining sound that ascends in pitch until the sound suddenly disappears into silence. Hold the breath out for a little longer. And then inhale, try and inhale slowly and gently into the Mahadra. Draw a deep, long inhale breath and just hold briefly at the top. In a second, we'll exhale a fast, sharp, 2-point horizontal exhale breath out of the Mahadra on a left-right axis. That's left-right of your body. And notice that as you exhale, the Chem code sphere launches upward like a rocket, shooting straight up the central vertical column and into chakra 10, 6 inches above your head. Sharp exhale, yep. Rocket up. Chakra 10, 6 inches above the head. Now breathe gently and slowly. 48 petal lotus breaths from the Ra center. And observe the chem code sphere at chakra 10. Just relax, breathe. 48 points nicely and easily from the Ra. At first, the chem code sphere will seem to disappear, as if it were not there. But within a few seconds, it will reappear. It will be filled with brilliant golden silver one light, and will change from a circular sphere shape into an elliptical sphere, egg shape, with pale silver light forming the white of the egg, as it were, and deep inside the egg, a brilliant pale yellow gold yolk emerges. Continue breathing gently from the Ra center, 48 point, and observing the gold and silver one cosmic chem code egg at chakra 10. Now continue to hold your mental attention on the center of the egg yolk, and in a moment you will give the mental command, silently in your mind, Zendra, rise, Zendradon, awaken. When you're ready, give the silent mental command, Zendra, rise, Zendradon, awaken, and then observe as the pale aquamarine spark appears at the center of the chem code egg yolk. Now inhale from the Ra center and draw the breath up to the Azure. Completely inhale into the Azure, a full, deep, lung-filling breath, and hold that breath at the Azure for a moment. In a moment, we'll take or use a single point exhale breath, and we'll breathe up from the Azure and into the pale aqua spark within the yolk of the chem code egg at chakra 10. So when you're ready, exhale a single point breath up from the Azure and into the pale aqua spark within the yolk of the chem code at chakra 10. When the exhale reaches the chem code egg yolk, the pale aquamarine spark turns into a small starburst, then flies rapidly down the central vertical column to the Mahadra at earth core. Breathe gently now from the Ra center and observe as a pale aquamarine breathing tube about 2 inches in diameter opens within all of your central vertical column between the Mahadra at earth core and the chem code egg at chakra 10, 6 inches above your head. The K12 seal on the center of the zendradon cell has now been released. Slowly return your breathing to normal. And whilst you do that, observe that the chem code egg and aquamarine zendradon breathing tube remain with you and active from this moment forth. As you go through the next few hours, imagine that you can feel and see the beautiful spiraling pale silver gold violet current from the zendradon moving gently downwards through the 2-inch pale aquamarine breathing tube. You are now prepared for the zendradon activation cycle. Before commencement, at least 6 hours of stabilization must occur before we can proceed further. Slowly and gently bring your awareness back to the room, and when you feel comfortable and ready, slowly and gently open your eyes. And although I think everything is as it should be, my personal inclination and suggestion would be to very briefly stand up and stretch gently and slowly, but just stretch your body. Very straight, arms up. Just breathe into the stretch. Just 2 or 3 breaths is all, and then sit down again. Keep your attention on the breathing tube if you can, the aquamarine breathing tube.
I'm used to holding something in my hand. Sit all the way over there. We both sit on this. Okay. I don't think I'm going to run them tonight. There's too many of them. I'll be here till 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, I'm going to talk for a bit about this stuff. I think Mom wants to chat about something as well. I don't know what. Nobody's hanging out there. I was going to go over here. I have to go over there. Okay. Yeah. Whew. Okay. Get these things in my face. There I go. Yes, please. Well, that's the beginning of a journey with the breathing tube. That was given to us right before we came down. That was the last thing. In fact, that's what we were doing right before we came down. Ma'a had given us that technique. It's the beginning of the cycle for the zendradon cell. And I haven't run it. It runs a bit in our system when, like, whoever's taken it down in translation. That starts us with activation of it. But it's mild until we run the full technique, like either, with you or, on our own like you would at home or something like that. But I didn't run this when it came through. It was just a little bit of the frequencies there. I don't know if anybody else experienced anything, but this is one of the first techniques I've actually, when the thing shot up from below the feet and came flying up, when it came flying up this way, there's this really neat series of very, very bright lights that I saw on the inside of my head, and I don't usually get that. I've not got that with any other technique, actually. So I don't know, maybe it's a sign that we'll be feeling some interesting things, with this activation. It is the beginning. Now, for tonight, because the graph set that I'm preparing is basically meant to be done in a long sequence, because it takes you real fast through some introductory stuff to go right into. It's almost like we're revisiting Kathara 2-3 to touch on the stuff that wasn't filled in because we didn't have the graphs ready. And these are the missing pieces. These are the pieces that will help make sense of the other things that were introduced in Belize, where you'll be able to understand where the things like the breathing tube and the pillar of power fit in with this thing called the crystal body. You'll also be able to get a much better idea of what the crystal body looks like, what its structure looks like, what its pieces are. So you know what you're walking around within, and you know what we're activating. So this series it's going to be like a long run. And when I get on a run, most of you probably have seen me on a run at some time or another, where I can go for quite a few hours if necessary. I'll try not to do that. I'll try to keep it civilized for all of us. Right now, I personally wouldn't want to try to do that because I'm sitting down because I've been getting dizzy for the last few hours just from exhaustion. And it's from doing this, because we've been doing this for 3 weeks before the workshop. In fact, we had the workshop before this in Belize, and then right before that we had California. And ever since California, this transmission hasn't stopped, which means we've hardly had like a week where we could sit down and have a normal dinner together as a family or anything like that. Our whole house gets turned upside down, and the kitchen turns into production central with paperwork scattered from one end to the other, and that goes all the way back through 3 rooms. Like kitchen, sitting room, hallway, and then there's an office at the end of that, and there's an office on this end. So it's been like that the whole time. And I keep asking them, could you please give it to me early so I can get the stuff, down so we can just have a normal workshop and go in and, we'll work from, say 10 in the morning until even 7 at night and have a nice production. That's it. And then we can go sleep when we get up there. No, it never works that way. We're getting the transmissions live as usual. And right now I wouldn't want to attempt, because I wouldn't be able to do it justice, because I can do certain transmissions justice when I'm not exhausted. And I want to do this justice because this is the most important stuff you're going to learn in a long time. And it's also a celebration, at least for me, because finally all these pieces of things are coming together, where we see where all these pieces of anatomy fit into something that's very practical and very usable. It's called our body and our light body and our sound body. So I'm going to start tomorrow with the usual workshop time for doing Mylars and getting in a technique. I still probably have about 40 grafts to finish. They're in various stages of done or undoneness. Some of them you'll see are beautifully typeset because Az has been keeping up with me very, very well. I'll do the drawings on them, then I'll hand them to him. Last time he was getting a lot of the drawings. This time I'm getting the drawings, and he's getting stuck with the typesetting, bless him. But he's faster than me on the typesetter. So some of them will be in decent form. Others you'll probably see, particularly the ones going toward the end, where we're getting into the spirals and all of that stuff. It'll be, chicken scratch on them again, but it'll be enough that you can see where the pieces fit. If there's one thing that I would like you to be able to go home with at the end of this experience we're going to share together, it's a real understanding of, there's a level of, aha, that's how it all fits. And you can just feel, it's almost like a direct cognition. And there's a sigh of relief somewhere in your soul that you can feel when you get it. And a part of you remembers, yeah, this is me. And you start to remember the empowerment that gave you. Now, power is something we've been taught to be afraid of here. And power is a beautiful thing when it's used with Christic principle. There's nothing wrong with knowing about your pillar of power, knowing how to use it well, as long as you're not trying to use it to hurt anyone. In fact, it won't help you. It won't cooperate, except the other one will. Because right now you have two pillars of power. One is a pillar of power, and one is a pillar of twisted power. So we're going to begin the process of healing the twisted one. This ought to be interesting. If any activations are going to let us know we're activating, I would think, because of the locations that some of these spirals come out of the body on the bottom end, that we may feel some things associated with it. We may feel headaches as well on occasion as the spirals are activating through the brain. Right now, as you'll see by the end of the technicals in this program, and tomorrow we'll get a lot of technicals as far as graphs, crystal body stuff, then we're going to get a bunch more at the end, like in the third workshop in Cornwall, that have to do with the planetary mutation and then seeing how that affects our body. That's when I think we're going to be seeing the gravitron and how that works, and that's what we're healing in our bodies. There's going to be a lot of interesting currents running through your bodies when with these activations. And we've been experiencing bits of it because we tend to get hit with it first because we're anchoring rods for when the frequencies come in from the Eka. That's what flame holders do. They anchor it and then they spread it to the keepers. And we've been getting some interesting effects. They're a little bit stronger than usual as far as, if any doctor saw us now, that since I was about 8, they would probably have had us on hormone therapy because we get heats, then colds, then heats, then colds, and heats and colds and heats and colds all the time. But it's always been there, and it's totally cyclic, and it's always with the activations. And sometimes you can even time them, it's almost 4 o'clock, where is it? Because it's coming. So if you start cycling and notice you get these things, don't immediately feel you need to run for the hormone therapy, or that you're doing the menopause or the girlopause or whatever you want to call it, because this is DNA activation stuff. We've been doing templates for a long time, and at some point it's got to start moving through the body more physically. And this is the time when we're doing the atomic etheric interface. We're opening the conduits between those things. What's kind of nice is by the end of all this, we'll also know, so that's what those lotus points are. Because I remember thinking, okay, yeah, you've explained a bit about them, but where do these plug into what, basically? Why are they there? What are they exactly? We'll understand a lot more about that when we understand the pillar of power and we understand the Rushate spiral that's coming down, because they directly interface with that, and it's through the combination of them that the chakra systems are formed. So it was like, oh, neat, when they showed me that. But the graphs were really difficult. It required, I remember being Miriam and thinking, I wish I could show them, because there were so many things that they would show me, and I could see them in my head, in 3-dimensional great colors, the whole bit. But to get that across to people, can you imagine trying to teach this stuff without pictures? Now, in those days, we didn't have photocopiers that could do easy overlays where you could size things to the right proportions and put, overlays over. It's a lot slower and more archaic than using three-dimensional technologies that make beautiful holograms that hang in the air, which is what they can do, in the ECA. But now is the first time in a very long time we've had technologies on planet that you could even get a decent visual representation of them. Some of these graphs, if you didn't have a photocopier to make different sizes of the same thing or, that kind of thing, it would take an artist freehand ages and ages just to do one of them. So we're fortunate in this time frame. This time we can show you, at least to some degree, what these parts look like. This workshop, there's some interesting things coming up with as far as there's a family here, they tell me, in England and also in Ireland and a little bit of them in France, but they're kind of like stuck over there from what they say. They're not they're not a large group over there. They don't have a lot of support. These are soul groups, and they're called the Keepers of the Zendra. They have very specialized coding that goes with what's called the Zendra cell of the Eka, which you'll learn more about when we get into the technicals. There are also keepers of the Nadra, and they were the ones that were assisting us when we went to Belize and to Mexico, particularly at the one site. Was it Chichen Itza? Yeah. There were a couple of the guides that were they were so glad to see us. And it was really strange. I mean, total strangers that, from a different culture. And here come this, group of wacky Americans and Europeans, treading on their pyramids and that kind of stuff. But they were glad to see us. And it was because they were told somebody was coming. And it was to help them. And, their shamans knew that we were there and that we were there to assist them. So these were part of the people that were the families of the keepers of the Nadra. Here we have the keepers of the Zendra. In India we have keepers of the Kethra. So they're the ones, they haven't told us where the Ethras are. I think they're scattered, actually. I think they're in several different places. But right now, the work that we do here, part of it is to... Fiji? Okay. Yeah, that feels right. The work that we're doing here is multiple purpose, which we'll get into more once we get through the crystal body stuff and understand how it works in our body. Then the last workshop's about how that applies to the planetary body, which gets into neat stuff like the Greenwich Meridian and the atomic clock and all of that twisted stuff. But we'll be setting the codes that begin the awakening cycle. Yeah, it depends on what you agreed to come for, because a lot of us stay asleep and run as little frequency as possible until it's needed. Because A, you can burn your body out fast. B, you glow like a light bulb in the astral, and it's not exactly good camouflage. So it tends to be that the higher the coding, the longer the wait. Because if you shine too bright too fast, they take you out quick. And, the other side, there's like astral posses that, check stuff out like that. And the ones that are the keepers of the radon cell connections, which would be the zendradon cell has its Zendra equivalent in the Eka levels. And these are not like little tiny cells in your body. These are like big cells that universes live inside of, all right? So like universes are cells inside of one of these cells. These are massive orbs of light, Akasha-shaped orbs of light. And this is the beginning of understanding the monad. And the monad is about the core seeding. When we talk about seed atoms being put in, all right, what are seed atoms? Where do they come from? Where are these flames anyway? This is all monadic studies. And we're going to be getting into this information as we move through crystal body into pillar of power into the cells, into the radon cells. We're going to start to understand more about monad. And there are beings in the universes in the Veka that are the keepers of the frequencies of very specific cells, photolight cells from the Eka and from the parallel Eka. And they have abilities, once they're activated, to run levels of current that people that don't have that particular contract, that didn't come in and carry the crystals that go with that, and they're crystals that are literally embedded in your shield, but they also manifest in the blood. They can run massive amounts of frequency. The purpose of these groups is to keep the potential for resetting the Rushate fully, if that need be, here. So it can be done. And this is the beginning of waking them up, because they are needed and they're being called in on the contracts that they had agreed to do. And they have their own missions. We don't tell them their missions, just like they don't tell us ours. But some of you may very well be part of some of those groups. And just because you're here, when you've heard about this, that doesn't necessarily mean you're a keeper of the Zendra. You might be a keeper of the Kathra, that you didn't happen to be born in India, so you're over here, but you're still carrying the codes for there. So it's more of a feel thing, kind of feel out, if you feel a resonance with any of these. The more we talk about the photocells, the more you see some pictures, drawings of how they, what they are, where they are. You'll get more of a feel for the cells themselves, and it'll give you a better idea of what you resonate with. Even if you don't have a direct keeper of one of the radon cells, coding, you'll still have partial coding and go with one of them more than any of the others. And it simply means that whatever your contract is, you assist and work with the groups that are, the Don, what's called the Don groups, the Nadradon, Gethradon, the Don groups. So we're all connected to this, and we're all connected in some way or another, whatever we're here to do, to the Rushate reset capacity. It is literally bringing back the ability for atoms to reverse mutate and start to take the structure they're supposed to have. Right now you have things like, I believe protons, for instance, I think they have, what do they have, I think they have 6 quarks altogether. It's like how many quarks that form a proton, how many, quarks form a neutron, those kind of things. Quarks are sparks. They're the manifest face of what we call spark currents that are generated by Partakai phasing, but not just Partakai phasing. Partakai phase and make sparks of a certain kind. Those sparks phase and make sparks of a step-down kind. So there's a whole step-down process. Sparks become spark pulse currents, where if you have lots of sparks being made, they start to accrete, and they interact electromagnetically with what's around them and between them, and they begin a flow. So you have think of particle wave currents, because they do form waves, but they are particles sometimes, and sometimes they are waves, and they can transmute between both. So we're dealing with particle wave science here when we're talking about it, but in a scope that science on Earth right now hasn't really played with. Science doesn't know we have a crystal body. Science doesn't, they're starting to realize there's something under there, but they don't know what it is or what to call it. That sticky tape that I told you about, the invisible sticky tape that makes atoms and things stick together, that makes quarks come together in certain ways and stick together to make protons and neutrons and those kind of things. So all of this, we're getting right to the heart now of the atomic structure. And this is also where, probably when we get into the planetary level of understanding the pillar of power and what has happened to it here, there's such a sorrow that when I got the diagram through that showed the gravitron vortex system, which is a twisted artificial vortex system that ties knots in the natural Rushate currents, a part of me just wanted to cry, not for myself, but for the Earth. It was like, it was just such a horrible thing to do to something precious. There was just, and I don't know if that was just like a me thing, but I have a feeling that you might run into that space where you start to feel the Earth and this compassion for the planet. And also realizing that, ooh, that's what's got me twisted up inside too, because we have gravitron vortices inside of us. Interestingly, they manufacture atomic structure that is not organic. They manufacture things that are science labels, I believe, as gravitons and gluons that are not natural structures, and they interact with other elements, other elementary particles, and they create substances that aren't intended to be in divine right order. They are substances that suck energy rather than flow with and harmonize with the energies around them. So there's going to be some interesting things happening, I would imagine, as we move through these radon cells. I mean, now we're doing the zendradon. We already awakened the nadradon, and it's doing its cycle. It's like once you wake them up, They do their own cycle of full wake-up. You can't control how fast it's going to activate once you do its primary activation level. It'll cycle in your body according to what your whole crystal body is structured as. So you're self-directed in that sense, but not ego-directed from down here. But there's a phasing, a cycling with these cells that's going to start as soon as we start. Like right now, some of you may get rushes tonight. Some of you may not feel something until 2 weeks after you get back from the workshop. It all depends on what's right for your body at a given time. But at some point, I really would think, since we're dealing with these cells that are the atomic etheric interface, that go right into the formation of quarks that form the elementary particles that your atoms are made out of, there must be some effects that we're going to be like saying, that's definitely an effect, you know what I mean? Where you start to get some feedback from the 3D world. We're already seeing feedback from the Metatronics in the 3D world. It's kind of funny when we were delivering the workshop, or going to deliver the workshop, that was talking about the fact that they're linking the wormholes over on the west coast through the Yucatan area, through the Gulf of Mexico, and over into the ones on the east coast of Florida, that all the hurricanes started coming up. Oh, just a coincidence. Yeah, right. I don't think so. We're starting to see effects of some of the energy things we've been talking about. But there's good effects, too, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I know there's been strange things like I have one of my daughters that most people haven't met. Some have. Esprit. She's a lovely girl, and she's very aware enough to decide. I'm staying grounded, Mom. She's fine with the stuff. She just doesn't want to get into anything until it's her time. She knows. She's waiting because she knows once you open the doors, you can never close them again. But she has an amazing thing happening with her blood. It keeps changing type. She's gone to a whole bunch of different places. She said she had over a dozen tests at different places at different times, and they've come up with 6 different blood types. Between them, they go one to the other, it keeps switching. And the other, one place will say, oh, they must have done it wrong at the other place, and they keep playing this. Circumstances, I have no idea what my blood type is, that kind of thing. This is connected to the activations. She also happens to be going through phases of heat flashes and, spontaneous, colds, illnesses coming up and purging, and the lower back pain, and the usual little bits of things that go with Kundalini. So there are some mild effects. I don't know how normal that will be. I've not looked at my own blood type actually to see if it changed. Last time I checked, it was A positive. I don't know if it's going to change from that or not. So there are things that may change, and there are things that may not. What I think what's most important that we start to think about, and I've been asking for ages now, but what's it going to look like in 3D? Just so I can let you know or give you a clue, because you guys are here listening to me, and I'm here listening to them. And I go with a huge trust. These guys have proven themselves to me, and I know them. They're family, and I feel that. So if they tell me something is a certain way, I don't mind just believing it, even if it takes me a while before I can prove it to myself or whatever. But I would like to be able to, if you guys are sitting here listening to me and to us about what, that we're telling you things are a certain way or we believe they're a certain way, we'd like to be able to have you have some, get some feedback, get some confirmation, get some way to say, well, I don't have to just go on blind trust. So I do ask for, what is it going to look like? And most of the time I just get chuckling at me. But he says, you'll find out, right? But one of the things we're aiming for with all of this, with this starburst part of the project, the starburst isn't something that has to happen in like regular Rushite reset cycles. It is something that can happen as an override that will stop the complete reversal of the Rushite currents. And that's why starburst is being set. It's initiating in the grids. It's initiating from the Akasha level, and there's like seals up above that in the Akasha Aya level that have to release. And this is all, again, on autopilot. It's not something that Yanni decide to do. It's something the grids decide to do in reaction to the energy that's flowing through them. But we're being given the opportunity to participate with it consciously. And I do think at some point that we're going to be, and I wonder what the groups are going to be like then. I wonder if they'll get smaller and smaller. See, one of the little things that it's almost been a rite of passage, and it hasn't been something we've done on purpose, But it's something that Ma'a and the beloveds have pointed out to us as far as not beating up on ourselves when the timing goes all nuts and goes on guardian time. So did you ever think that the people who have the attitudes that would stomp and pout and have hissy fits about the fact that something didn't happen exactly when they wanted it to, did you ever think that maybe they're not mature enough to be there in the first place? And did you ever think that somehow, sometimes the universe has its own way of sorting out the details? I said, you mean you do it on purpose? And they said, no. They said, but sometimes it works out that way, that the people who need to be there show up and are happy about it. They don't have attitude issues about it. I mean, what if I had an attitude issue, or As had an attitude issue every time it was time to take a transmission that lasted all night for the third week in a row? What are we going to say? No, I'm not going to talk to you tonight. Talk to me in a week. I'm going on vacation. I have a feeling I'd be unemployed as far as guardian work by the next moment, right? There's a maturity level that comes with, that's actually in the old days that you used to have to prove yourself in certain ways. There were certain tests that most people didn't know were tests until they were over, as how you would respond to certain situations to see your maturity level and whether you were ready for the next block of data, because every block of information also applies a level of responsibility as well as a level of privilege. There's a lot of people all through the eons that have wanted the privilege, but they were not interested in having the responsibility that went with it. So there were tests, not to choose good people over bad people. It wasn't about good and bad. It was about ready or not ready yet. That's all. So the people who keep coming, despite the fact that sometimes the hours go crazy, and we still do our best to bring you the best program we possibly can, and we still care very much about your time and the fact that you're here. But you guys, you still keep coming, and I'm very glad you're here. For people who are just coming new, be forewarned. Sometimes, it's been 2 years since we've been able to be on schedule, and this used to really, really drive me over the edge. That's my Virgo imprint, where I like things to be on time and orderly and nice and methodical and, perfectionistic. Yeah, right. Well, it's healing that imprint in me for sure. It hasn't worked that way, and we don't mean to inconvenience any of you. And it's so nice now to be able to walk in to a room and you guys, you clap that we're here, even though it's like 10 hours late, But are we late? Or were we just aiming too early before? This is where we got into loosely structured time frames. Don't publish the times, because the universe might have a better idea. And who am I to say, well, it has to happen at 2? Really? I can see Ma laughing at me again in a loving way. Does it really? 2 years from now, perhaps. Right? No. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lot to cover tomorrow. We have a lot more to do tonight as far as getting the graphs ready. But a part of me is determined, because I really feel that there's a particular sequence in these graphs that brings it a bit flat off the page into 3D, where it's something that I can't even put words onto, but there's a direct cognition that comes, and I felt it when certain graphs came together in a certain order, in a certain sequence. Even if it was just the pieces, or bang, something opened up. I got it. I got something, and I could feel it. It was just oh yeah. And you could feel this part of source, or this part of something, and I want so much to be able to, for you to be able to experience that. And I know which graphs. I remember looking at them all and thinking, what 3 did that? What 3 out of these 30 were sitting next to each other when the bang happened? And these are pictures without words, right? First come the pictures, and sometimes you get 6 pictures and you find out they all end up on one page. This is how it comes. But there is something in these, if they're sequenced and properly, there's a linking sequence to them in frequency, that they do stuff. You get the 3D knowledge, and that opens holes in the Shona fields that are surrounding our mental bodies here. But there's something else that the information talks to each other from one graph to the next, and it talks to your cells. And then there's these little pops of spontaneous direct cognition that come. And you know how you can like listen to this stuff and go, I just lost all of it. I have no idea what we started talking about an hour ago because I just got totally burned out and don't remember any of it. Well, you can go right past that phase, and you might go back into that phase, but something in you opens long enough to hold the whole ball, where it's not just a linear line of facts anymore. All of a sudden, it's a knowing. And that knowing is precious. And then it shuts off again, and you go, I know I knew that. Where'd it go? It's still in there. Once you've got it, it will come back again. You know, so what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do, that's why we're still working so hard. The theory and the pictures are a huge part of anchoring the frequencies. That's why we do this, and that's why they insist that when transmission time is here, if we have to be, like rescheduled timings and stuff, well then do it. What's more important, to go and give a workshop where you tell everybody what they want to hear and tell them nothing at all that's useful, or whether you show up when the universe is ready to give the information and you give it to them direct, and that's what we do. So I hope you're happy with that, and we're very happy with the fact that you're so gracious about the timing. I wish I could say that, and I promise in like 2 workshops from now it'll never happen again. Yeah, right. I wish. I keep asking just for a break. Can we do like 1? I wouldn't even ask for 2 in a row. Where we can say we're going to go from 10:30 till 6 in 3 days in a row, and we do. And then we can like have a life from 7 o'clock. We'll have dinner, and maybe we could go down the health club and get some exercise in. Yeah, right. So we're trying. Anyway, this is what we'd like to have. That's my fantasy. That's Oz's fantasy too. I think yours is probably about a year's vacation from the whole bunch of it, and to be able to see the kitchen once in a while. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but anyway, there is something about guardian service and showing up when the universe calls you. And I know that there is a training that's happening while we're all experiencing this, with us on this end being frustrated because we don't want to let a group of people be upset with us because we're not on time. We don't want them to think we don't respect them and all that kind of stuff. And we don't like people to get frustrated and how it's waiting, that kind of stuff. But there's a lesson on our part and on everybody's part. And it's really interesting if you can stick a little part of yourself on your shoulder or in your mentor space just to watch how yourself and other people handle the lesson. I mean, I constantly still go into, I'm sorry, mea culpa, mea culpa. Mea culpa. Yeah. Where, get over it already, me. I need to stop apologizing, and I realize that. Because, I'm not doing it to you. And nobody's doing it to you. It's not an it that's being done to you. It's the fact that timing in the universe works a little different than I want it now because I said so. And that's what we're taught works here, and it doesn't. So anyway, there's a lot of lessons that we're learning between the lessons that go up on the board or the things we talk about. And all of them are important. The things you come to learn that are linear and done on the logical level, they're allowing the mental body to grow enough where it can reclaim its spiritual body and its physical connection to the spiritual body. So mental body training is very important. Don't let any of those guys out there say, oh, that's just mental body stuff. Yeah, well, what you going to do without yours? Perhaps turn into a plant or something that, doesn't need those anymore. But, or maybe an android. Actually, plants have quite the intelligence. Most of them are more intelligent than we are. Did you ever talk to trees? Did you ever hear them talk back? If you hear them talk back, realize that somebody thinks you're a special person, because most trees are so fed up with humankind that they almost have made a pact. They won't talk to us anymore because we a long time ago stopped listening, and then we started abusing them, and they decided they gave up. There are a lot of species that actually do feel that way. I remember having one very arrogant tree say, so I hear you can hear us. I thought I was losing my mind. Hello? And then an ivy plant that was hanging in my window had to literally reached over and grabbed my hair 3 different times in the same 10-minute period. The tree is talking to you. It is the tree. Yes, it's the tree. So the ivy tells me it's the tree. I hear, oh well, I'm over the edge anyway, so I might as well go for it. Hello, tree. You're talking to me. Yes, consider it a privilege. Right? And it was that tree was an angry tree. It was a bush, actually. Maybe it was angry because it had Napoleon syndrome. I don't know. It was short. But it was interesting. It taught me something fascinating about plants and things. And by the way, the plants, some of them come from other matrices that are working Metatronic. And you can sense the attitude. I mean, I'm getting pretty good where I can sense a Jehovian tree from a Drac tree. I mean, we all come from the same core groups. There are bugs, plants, rocks, trees, animals, humans, the whole thing. They all have a family affiliation up there. But there are some trees that are emerald trees, and they're very wise and patient, and they usually don't say very much at all unless they're asked. But if they're asked nicely, they tend to first communicate in emotion, and they'll move a feeling toward you and around you, almost like an invitation. All right, do I hear you're possibly talking to me? They're not angry. Some of the other trees that feel we let them down, if we were to help them evolve, and we didn't as human beings on this planet, or if we, certain of our kind have abused them, they may very well be ticked off at us. But these particular trees, and they don't always come in the same species. You can find one species, just like you can find one racial group that has all of the colors represented in it on the soul levels. So you can't just say, okay, I'm going to go find myself a fig tree because fig trees are emerald. It's not that easy. It's by feel. But there are trees here that have commissions with the keepers of the radon cells, that they will teach you things. I know the one tree a long time ago that talked to me, or the bush, it told me something, and it explained something to me that when I thought about it, it made perfect sense from even what I knew, but I never thought about it. Every tree of the same species, no matter where it is on the planet, has immediate open communication with every other one. Every plant of the same kind knows instantly the experience that every other plant of its kind is having, also going backward and forward in time, which means they have direct open access to any time frame in which they have incarnations. They can teach us to do the same thing. It has to do with photocells. Plants do photosynthesis. Once upon a time, so did angels. We're going there, aren't we? This is what this is about. This is news to me. This has to do with being able to do photosynthesis again. There's something in our blood that's dormant. This is why they're telling us not to go in the sun. This is why they're trying to keep us out of the sun and make us afraid of the sun. Yes. This is the beginning. Okay. The interesting little tidbits floating down from the ethers with Ma grinning from ear to ear going, we were wondering if you'd make the connection at all. I didn't. Here I'm sitting talking about trees, and all of a sudden we got to photosynthesis, photolight cells. Wait a minute. What? Yeah. Yes. So there's a surprise here for all of us. This comes down to something in the blood and the body fluids that have the ability to do something similar to photosynthesis that allows them to create and generate from within themselves nutrients from the sunlight, which ought to be interesting. I'm going to put that one in file 13. I call it file 13. That's the one there that, interesting. Have no idea what that means right now, but I know it's important. So I stick it there and wait till something else accretes next to it until it finally means something, and I can either categorize it as something that, yes, that's important to keep, or no, that wasn't that important after all. This was one of the important ones. So anyway, that was a little gift from above. I'm not going to keep us here real late tonight and chat, because when I'm this tired, I could just keep going and talk about probably nothing. And it would probably be interesting, which would be scary. You know what I mean? Because I'll start going into incarnational memory, and we'll be talking about ancient Egypt and all sorts of things. Yeah, it's 11:30 now. Yeah. Yes, best to go back to work, I know. Actually, I think I'm escaping. I can sit here and chat with you, or I can go back and stare at pay stubs again. Yeah. I do get frustrated sometimes with it, because it is grueling sometimes, bring the transmissions down. Some of the graphs, I'll point them out when they come through, the frequency on them was so high that they were making me physically sick to bring them through, where I was getting nauseous and dizzy and like my bones aching and that kind of stuff. And I could take down maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and I would have to go to sleep for 2 hours. I was literally laying down and rolled up in a blanket on the sitting room floor because I couldn't take more than 10 minutes of transmission. So some of these are not fun to bring here. The information is wonderful, but the sophistication of the data, we need to get into what's spinning what way. Do you ever try to think about trying to bring information on very specific spin rates and polarities, right? Very specific data, through polarity reversed currents on the planet. First it says left, then it says right, then it says left, then it says right. What is it, left or right? Is it up or down? Is it negative or positive charge? What is it? That kind of stuff. It's very, very difficult sometimes, and we won't let stuff go as this is the way it is until we know that it's correct. So it's been one of those. So hopefully you can appreciate it. I'll point out some of the graphs. And at some point, by the way, these graphs are going to end up, see, we're not going to have them done, and we're not going to go through even more trauma, because it becomes trauma attempting to do a chart pack during workshop, particularly when you're working with hotels, and particularly more than one hotel where you're moving and that kind of stuff, because people don't like to run off 70 or 100 copies of 100 pages for whoever. I don't care how many people you brought here for 2 days, we have our limitations. This information will end up, the crystal body stuff is actually going to be put in the K23 manual to finish that off, and then it's going to link in to where we get into the polarity information more directly, like with the Richete spiral and all the stuff is affiliated with the Pillar of Power. We'll start Cathar 4. It's probably going to be the end of next year, 2005, before the manual for K4 comes through, because it's going to involve the Belize workshop, it's going to involve this one, it's going to involve India and Morocco and possibly one after that. So I can hardly wait to see where this is going, but it looks like photosynthesis has something to do with it. So anyway, I will say good night, and I will thank you very much for your patience, and I hope you had a good time today. We did try to not hang you up where we're coming, and you're pacing around the lobby. Come on already, either come or don't, but let me go do something if you're not going to be here. We tried to let that work that way. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the techniques. Yeah, I'd like to thank Mac, too, by the way, if you're back there, I can't see. But for running the things this afternoon, they were essential because we couldn't have run this one tonight to catch the wave in the planetary grids unless those things were running in the fields. And it didn't matter if you did them before. They still needed to be, activated in the fields. I look forward to seeing. I don't know if we're going to get more technique for tomorrow, because I don't understand yet the grid work that's coming in, like how these waves are working, but they'll let us know, I'll learn and then you'll learn, probably at the same time. But there will be more techniques that are coming, but I'm not sure if they're tomorrow or if they're going to be in the third workshop once we get down there. I do know the big hurrah is for Stonehenge when we go there, and we'll know more about what that is when, we're going to have the last workshop. We'll deal with the planetary issues and the gravitron and what we're doing at Stonehenge and what that has to do with beginning the radon cell awakening with the planet. So there's a lot of information to cover, and we're going to go back and crawl back into our paste up department, and hopefully you'll have a good evening. And I'm glad you don't have to go crawl up into your paste up department. It's not fun, but it's worth it. Once they're done and you see this, the crystal body stuff, I don't know about you, but I look at this stuff, that is the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen, and not the drawings particularly, because I keep saying, oh yeah, I wish that line was straighter, my art isn't great, but just the structures are gorgeous. Imagine these in three-dimensional, multi-dimensional light forms, living light, singing. I mean, they all have sound, they all have light. There's just something phenomenal with this stuff. So we're back to the graphs, and what time are we starting tomorrow morning? 30? 30? 30? Yes, 30.
10 to 10:30.
30? 30? 10:30, please. You're going to sleep at some point. I'm not.
How do you know?
Because I'm going to bop you on the head and make you go to sleep if you don't. You have to drive tomorrow night or the day after. Yeah. So the one thing that Az does that I don't do is he drives whenever we have to go any place, because I still haven't learned how to drive on the other side of the road with wheels on the other side of the car. So anyway, I'll say goodnight. I just babble when I'm this tired. I'm sorry. But it's wonderful to have you here, and thank you again for your patience. And tomorrow, it should be worth it. We'll get you into some interesting theory, and I'll see what I can find out more about that photosynthesis as soon as possible, because that's got my curiosity piqued. Good night. I don't think we're going to turn green. Blue, maybe. No. Thank you.
Right. Well, I think if we do this in a business-like way, it isn't. One of the small kind of pork pies or lies that are told is that everything that is significant takes a long time to do, and it really doesn't. When you have the general strength, grit, and intention you guys have, and the tools. So we can do that, and you can probably, sort of just cruise around and groove and go feel some stones and, do something really fun before we leave. So let's just do the drop, okay? And that'll give us, let's say, an hour before you say, oh gosh, I must get back to the bus. So if you can start to make a beeline to the bus at about an hour from now, just before 4 o'clock, we should be out of here just after if you can go directly to it. So, and the buses want us to guide them in because the drivers are a bit concerned about access and drop-off points and where they hold the coaches until we get back on later. So, alrighty, so I think that we'll just do the Maharata together again, and then three energetic breaths of your personal favourite flavour. Well, that's allowed. And then a concentrated and collective, I hope, transmission. So one final big breath in, and we'll just drive them down. All right? One of those gentle pile driver breaths, very Azurite thing. All right. Do a little 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Maharata kumbai vectis Evokai unibli umbai vectai Mahabai vectai unure urnamur Iseum te isatraja hehera Vetate umma ashelum taeja intadoe Shaddai ure akum tan mind the chem code or intend it to be present in your fields. And exhale forcefully down to earth core. A slow, deep return breath from the earth. Slow, deep breaths. The pillar and pillar power and a breathing tube in line. Incorporate the pale turquoise frequencies as you do it. Three rounds of the Shadayo. Enjoy the Avery stones. You can't see them anymore as they used to be. I used to live in this area, not very far away from here, in the days when I didn't know what a guardian was, except somebody found an insurance company. And know a little bit about the site, but then basically it used to be a complex array of about 650 stones in its original form, and is known by authorities and experts, beware. But nevertheless, it seems to have been the largest and most significant crop circle on the planet, the largest one, the most significant one, and I dare say the most compromised one. So be careful as you go about the place. It's one of those places that attracts all manner of well-wishers and do-gooders. And yes, good seeders. And you need to be aware as you go about. And whilst we're talking like this, and I'm on this subject, when we go to Glastonbury tomorrow, please, please, please be careful. Ultra, very careful. If you go in the town, around the town at the time, instead of going at the Abbey, please be careful. And there are certain stores there that you'll find almost irresistible, particularly those offering giggles, crystallized pieces. You'll get more than you like. Really, really careful. Be careful as you go back this night. See back in the coaches there, just it's their job.
It's a big wet words there, yeah. Nice juicy ones. Yeah.
Is that your voice? Right next to
I was facing back.
you. All right.
It's not. I'm going to go to the most ancient toilet on the planet. Let's go to the toilet. Oh, you said oh, is that his, it's tactical groups.
He got you on camera.
You're filming all the brave ones.
Yeah.
That'd be good. Style. A little bench part? Yeah. Oh, that's cool. There was beautiful day.
So presumably you can all remember.
Can't hear you.
Pardon? I can't hear you. I've done that one before, Captain, as well. I said the way that you arrange yourselves on the visit to St. Margaret's is the way that in a minute you'll stand again the way you did. All right. Ash and I will just stay in the middle and talk to each other while you're doing that. Max, what? No, there was I, so you have to ask somebody else.
Yeah, we weren't there.
Well, I don't know. I haven't brought a shovel and I can't dig a hole down. So what we'll do is we'll stand you in the circle with all the other people running it. Don't worry. Having got you in that position.
That's 12.
Where's 12?
Yeah.
But is she where she was?
Is that where you want 12? You want the 12 here?
But 12 will stand over there in approximate alignment with that growth. Just to your left a bit. Susie. To your right now because you got your back to me, darling. Now to your left because you got your front to me. Yeah, you got it. You got it.
Bye, George.
Wonderful. Just stay like that.
Okay. Arc of energy coming off. Come on.
this night worlds were born. Once on a day when the sun shone its brightest, once on a day when the breezes rose high, once on a day when the rivers flowed with sorrow, once on this day worlds were gone. But today, in this moment, in the heat of the fire, the long aching dream of life returned from the pyre. Oh, come near, new life reborn. Come, come, rise from the waters. Come, come, rise from the sea. Reach forth, heart of the lion, ringing out from the ancient lands of destiny. Once were a peoples pure and of innocence, once were a peoples loving and free. Once were a peoples alive with eternal light, once were a peoples that high lay in victory. Once came a wind dark and cold from the lowly places, once came a spawn of the dark fallen sun. Once when the rays of the demons spread suffering, when stricken the high were done. But today, in this moment, in the warmth of the sun, rise the long-hidden peoples of the gold and silver one. Oh, come near, Haile reborn. Come, come, rise from the dreamlands. Come, come, rise from memory. Reach forth, children of El Haile. Camelot awaits thee where the golden portals call. Now in a dream all the worlds that had gone away, now in a dream walking forth to the dawn. Here in this dream reaching forth to the universe and call to the port of our home. Come, come, open the doorways. Come, come, let us be free. Here now we give of our love to thee, the homeland so long for, sacred Camelopati. Eta leha shadema, eta hima shrade, shrezane tueta de amorea, durnet rumarahena, Ishura Camelopati. Good job to all.
Hello, everybody. You got it?
Yeah.
Bye. We're going to visit with James. Remember James that used to be here?
Yeah.
He used to come here, we heard.
Signs over on the other side.
The linking sequences, because they could get them through. So it's some fascinating information that is very timely. And I will do my best to teach you what I just sort of learned. I can't say I've learned it. I've translated it. But learning it is a different story. There's a lot here to learn. And some of it is very exciting and very good. It's really neat when you start to really get to know your anatomy better. But there are some things that are going down on the planet that is the reason why that we're getting, again, back into these strange workshops where God knows when the workshop's going to happen, but it does, because it's on security clearance. This time it wasn't security clearance. This time it was they couldn't get it into the grids because they have to wait. Information is frequency, and if the planet doesn't have the apartheid in the shields active, or at least waiting where you can get the information frequency in, you're not going to have the information on the planet. So they've been trying to juggle that around literally since California, when the Buddhara wormholes started to open. And there's going to be, toward the end, more on that. But we're going to get into the good stuff first. And the good stuff is the fun stuff, the stuff that has to do with the solutions as opposed to the problems. But I think we're on some big times now. This is like, they didn't tell me that was a potential when I was coming down here to do this job this time. So it's good, but we're being asked to do a very, very special round table type thing at Stonehenge, and also a different type of thing at St. Michael's Mount. But there's a very big reason behind it this time, and we'll get into that. But there's a lot of technicals you need to understand, at least a little bit, to be able to understand the significance of what we're doing and how this time it's going to be a hit or miss. And if it misses, I wonder what plan F is. Because I think we're on plan E at this point. We started with A, which was it all works out peacefully and there's no worried and all that stuff. But it has to do with starburst. And I'm learning or being taught what starburst means. And most of the graphs that took so much time during the night were explaining what starburst is, at least in a rudimentary fashion that we can grasp it a little bit. So we can possibly say, oh, that's a big one, isn't it? So there's more going to be coming through as well. There's going to be techniques, something they're going to give live at the end of tonight, tonight's going to go probably till about midnight. And we also have some extra workshop time, thanks to Darlene and whoever else helped to organize it, but for Saturday morning. So we have grid work tomorrow. We'll go late tonight, and then we're doing grid work tomorrow, the St. Michael's Mountain, I believe, Land's End. And then Saturday in the morning, and I think this is going to kill me. I might as well just stay up Friday night. It's going to be from probably, I heard it was about 8 o'clock in the morning until 12 or 12:30 is where we can get the space. Okay, so we're going to do it there, just so you have the time, and there will be more information given by then. We're going to be doing the chakra work, like once we understand where chakras come from, right? Because this is part of what the fun stuff is that we'll learn about. When we learn about the Rishite spiral, we're going to learn about how that creates what we call the chakra system in the body. And there are some very special ways you can use the chakras in order to turn your crystal body back on quick. And that's basically, in a nutshell, what we're going to be taught how to do. It has to do with something called double arc breathing. There are a set of lotus arcs that are very big ones, that are the lota level ones, that run through the eka and the lotum from Partakai side and ours in Partakam side. There's a sequence of turning on not only your density level ones, but the big ones, where they phase with the other lotus arc sets. This creates a fascinating phenomenon. When the graphs started coming through on this, I was like, oh, neat. What was that again? Did you say pulsar plasma wave? What? Yeah. So there's some neat. I looked at it and said, oh, this is really, really cool. They're going to teach us how to do something quite phenomenal with our fields. That's very natural. But it hasn't happened here in ages. It used to be the natural way you just continually regenerated sparks in your system. But it's also the way to rapid healing and rapid getting your fields stable if your planetary fields aren't going to be. And we're seeing a little bit of the instability from the Buddhara actions that they've been doing with linking the wormholes with this crazy weather that's going up. I mean, it's literally going right up the path to the wormholes on the East Coast up by Florida. And they said this is the beginning of seeing phenomena like that. It's not from our grid work. It's from what the Metatronics are doing. And there's a response in the grids to that. It's not something that Iani do or the Adonai do. It's something that the planetary grids will do under certain circumstances, just like Hitharo was something the planetary grids initiated because it's like a self-sustaining system. Just like if you get a virus in your system, your body starts to produce an immunity to it, to go after it and stop it. Well, the planet does that too. It has a lot more, it puts up with a lot. Look at the condition it's in at this point. But there is a point where it knows it's going to go to a point of no return. And it will release frequencies that will pull it back into alignment, whatever it can grab of its own body. And these frequencies are going to be released. There's going to be a major spiral of energy coming in to this planet, and it needs as much stabilizing, anchor rods as it can get, because it's going to come with or without them. If it were going to come without anybody here that could anchor it and help to spread it out nice and easy, they'd be doing evac, because it would shatter the shields, literally, between what the other guys are running and that coming through. This has to do with not only the preservation of the Veka system, but with the Eka system as well. When the Eka is under threat to the level that it is frequency-wise, when this particular starburst activity triggers, it literally shifts the Eka. We talked in Ireland once, I remember very briefly, about the cycles, the 6 cycles, and there's all sorts of yugas and yuegos and all this massive stuff on the calendars. Well, it's like pushing ahead to a full 90-degree shift, pushing the time clocks in the shields ahead. So you can actually flip over into the parallel Eka. The Eka is going to do this because it's getting out of the line of fire, basically. Now, any grids that are still able to connect to the Eka also have the ability to starburst. It's called starburst because you go hyperspace, or at least the part of the grids that can do it. I'm going, what does this look like? You know, and they're saying, you'll get there, you know. But they're giving us the technicals. So this is big stuff. And, I apologize on behalf of the beloveds, the Iani and the Adonai as well. But they what did they say this morning to me? They said, I'm sorry, but we're not going to apologize. I'm sorry if the universe is inconveniencing any of you, you know, including me. Because I'm on morning rest. I'd like to be able to get some sleep. It'd be nice to be able to go and do a workshop awake for once. You know, this kind of stuff. Yeah, I moan and groan, but I still show up, you know. And I do my, you know, and I'll, because I love this work. And it's just a truth that I've died for many times. I would go back to space dust for it because I know it to be my truth. But sometimes truth can be very inconvenient, and I apologize on behalf of truth being inconvenient sometimes, but I hope that you'll feel it's worth it by the end of the workshop. I think I will tell you this. I don't know why, but I'm getting the urge to do this. As soon as we can get the pieces of Mylars put together, you'll have your presentation. But is it? Okay, I just need to review it because what was that? It went to 110-ish pages, 15 pages, yeah. So I have to go back and remember what one was. The first 5, the first 10. You know, I mean, by the time this all assembled itself in the last 2 days.
Will you tell them?
Yeah. But because you've been such lovely people and not been like, you know, huffy and puffy and angry with me or the universe or any of us for having this really strange guardian time, well, yeah. We did do something since the graphs had to be done anyway. Because as I said before, I'm learning it through the graphs. That's how they teach me. If I don't have the graphs, I haven't learned it yet. So I have nothing to teach you. That's why I won't show up if I don't have the graphs, because I don't know yet. Well, we figured since you've been so patient that the graphs had to be done anyway. And if it wasn't for Az and him being willing to stay up really bizarre hours for a number of nights, typesetting all over the place and such. And remember I said you won't be able to have a chart pack this time. There's just no way to assemble it. Well, you got about 112 pages or 10 pages. Some of it's stuff you've seen, some of it's stuff you haven't. It incorporates some of the stuff from K23, so, you know, because it leads in from there, of crystal body particularly. There are graphs and things that show more about the structure of crystal body and function and things. And there's like some small print that's actually typeset thanks to Az. I don't know how he typesets my handwriting. So if you find typos, you haven't seen my handwriting when I'm in transmission. It's worse than hieroglyphics. The fact that he can read it proves he's telepathic, because he's just picking up the line, you know, from the plates and just he knows. Because I look back at it 2 days later and I can't read my writing. So. But you will have the chart packs to take home. They start with the basic stuff, because what I was planning to do is have a nice one. Oh, yeah, remember we started with this in Cathar 1, and then really quick go into Cathar 2, and really quick hop into, like, 3 going into 4. So you have a bit of that in the front. But there are some diagrams in here that when you see them, you'll see what I mean. The artwork alone took ages. They were brutal. Yeah, they really were. I was thinking, I wanted to be an artist, but this isn't exactly what I had in mind. Yeah. Because I wasn't a graphic artist, I was a freehand artist, you know, did portraits and those kind of things. This is very different. This is all, everything has to line up, and I line them up as best as I can. I mean, computers could do it better in certain ways, but they don't carry the frequency the same way, because any person who writes on a page, you've actually transmitted frequency from your hand into the page, into the ink. Now, when you do it on a computer, there's an intelligence between the two of you. All right, there's a different brain in there, and it is conscious, and it does change the frequency that's out. So sometimes we'll put out graphs that are cleaned up on the computer because they're clearer to see. But I like to include the hand-done ones, even though they might be scratchy looking and not perfect, because there's frequency in them. So these guys aren't retouched yet. These are, you know, freehand ones. But it gets to a point where it comes down to simple exercises, again, of technique, of learning to do the double arcs, which is a really neat thing, because I've noticed hours, and it dawned on me why we had to go back. It wasn't just because the photocopier was there. It was because we had to pick something up. We're sitting on one of the grids that's directly aligned with ArcGate 12, and there's some really wild stuff that runs through the house frequency-wise sometimes. and we needed to go back to pick up a transmission that was being given so we could give it to you if you wanted it. And it has to do with the arcs. There's a set of codes that allow the double set of arcs to start going, which opens the breathing tube in the center, running up the center of the body, but all the way to the echo level. And sometime during probably when they give the technique, because they're going to give it live, that's going to be whatever code it is. They ran through our grids at the house, and there were 4 of us that went back to the house to work on getting all this stuff together. The 4 of us ended up with, I could see it in the arc field, the double arcs were going, and it was really neat. I could feel my own. Neat. I didn't do that. I didn't do it. I didn't make it happen. I didn't even realize until yesterday that we had more arcs to make go. But it is a frequency, a very large frequency transmission that is being gifted to us, I believe, by the Eoni. It allows for time jumps, basically. If there's it allows us flexibility in time, in what time waves we can use. We can go anywhere from the base 3 to up to a base 48 when you're working with these arcs. There's a lot more to it too, and I hope to know more by the end of the workshop as well. I do know that this is the zendradon awakening, and that's one of the photocells. We'll learn about those a bit more and what they do, because they're directly connected to these double sets of arcs. They're directly connected to the pillar of power, which is the center vertical column inside of your it runs inside of your body and all the way through your crystal body, that actually generates the spark pulse currents, or sparks of radiation, that become the 15 rays when they step down. They actually form the body. They form the atomic structure as well as the etheric structure. So we're going to be learning about etheric body a bit more, which is where we'll learn about ethos and eros and a few other oses, like logos and photos and, no, not lactose. That's something else. Oh, wait. Yeah, who said that? Somebody said that. Yeah, you. Yeah, Ma is here. He does it once in a while. He'll like shoot me zingers, and I'll close my eyes. I can see him smiling at me. Just going, hello. Yeah. So there's some neat stuff to learn, and fortunately, there's so much of it that my brain was completely burnt out by the time I got done with this. Where did we start? Yeah. What was page 10? I don't even remember what was page 10. I don't even remember where I thought we were going with this, because they definitely took it about 3 workshops ahead of where I thought we were going. I really wish we could get one book done before they get halfway through the next one. It's a little rough. But you will learn a lot and quickly, and because there might not have been a chance, some of this will appear in the K23 manual, which is almost ready for letting go for anybody who is going to purchase that package, because we decided to put the workshops together, Phoenix and California, and a bit also of Belize is going in there on Crystal Body. And that will be available, but it may be the end of 2005 before some of this other stuff is available as a package that can be bought on the product list, which means you'll learn a bit about the chakras and where they're located and what they do and stuff, but you won't have anything except your own brain to remember it, right? And I figured, just in case, I would like to have, you'd be able to have those graphs, and they said, good idea, because there may be grid problems, and if there's grid problems, they may not be able to. I don't know what they mean by may not be able to get the information to us easily at another time. So it is going to be given to you in paper form, so you do have something to read and look at. And I'll warn you, we had no time for proofing at all. So it's going out with, this is pre-publication, okay? Which means there may be, things where I meant to say right and I said left. So, it's to that level. But it should be pretty good with that, because, they usually say, nope, that's the other way around. But some of this stuff is very difficult as far as things spinning in what direction. So I will say it's probably, I'd say 99% sure that it's exactly how it should be. But I will reserve the right for, correction if necessary. So just, as far as just certain little details, it's the little detail issues that get really time consuming. When you're you'll see some of the graphs. But the most important stuff is totally spot on, and I know that. But I just want you to know that we're doing it, as a favor. You can pick it apart and say, there's a mistake there, there's a mistake there. There's probably quite a few of them, especially spelling errors and things, because I'm great for those. But, but Yaz usually catches it when he's typesetting. Usually take care of it. But for Americans, it's kind of funny, because I know when I was more over in America, and I'd read English stuff, everything looked misspelled to me. So part of it's, the English spelling for English words, and part of it may be that he's going fast. And you know how you read and you just type, right? And if somebody has something spelled wrong, you can very easily just type it the way it's spelled. So whatever errors might be in there, the most important stuff is you've got the pictures, and they themselves carry huge amounts of data. And most of the writing is correct, but there's still more writing that needs to go on them. There wasn't time. So I want you to know that they're coming. In fact, I think, do we have them anywhere near where we could pass them out? Because it would be better if they could follow along with them. Yeah. Oh. We have more copying to do? Oh, what? Oh, they didn't get done back then. So I thought they did. Okay. Well, as soon as we can get them ready. Anyway, I thought it might be easier for you to follow along where you have the small print.
They can have there's a lot of the front end there.
Yeah.
Just need a couple of able-bodied volunteers to come and carry a box.
Yeah, they can slot the stuff in the front.
What do you mean? Two females.
Are you sure it won't turn into chaos? There's several things that need to be slotted in different areas. I get mind boggled when I try to. 4 piles and I forget which one's first.
Little boys. Come on. Little boys with muscles.
Okay, as long as the page numbers are on and it's 1 packet per person, it should be foolproof. That's good, because once we get into, for the earlier stuff, it won't be that hard, but when we get into the more difficult things, I think it'll be helpful to you to be able to follow along a little bit, like on something on your lap, where you might not be able to read the small type up here, and you'll have it there, if you want something. So we didn't hang up the workshop in order to get this to you, but it was like we might as well. We would have had more pages in it. There's a section that I'm going to cover tonight, like later tonight, that has to do with more of the planetary stuff. We ran out of paper because we took it to the house. We didn't know we were going to do this, and we have a leased photocopier at the house because we'd be dead without it, but because we're out in the boonies and but we didn't have enough paper to do there was like maybe 8 or 10 graphs. Most of them you've seen them before, some of them from Belize, and none of them were fully finished, but they were enough to show like stuff planetary wise as far as the Merkaba tilt and that kind of thing. But the most important ones you did get, and I do believe you have at the end of it, I think that got in there, the consolidated Stargate chart thing. It's 1 page that has all the Trinity gates, all the gates, because they're all over the place. It's on they're on the map too, but this is like just 1 regular standard size paper that has them all on there. And there was another one that was really useful. There's another one that got left at home because there's a whole section on time waves that I think that's going to be a whole workshop unto itself, because there's like 25 already different diagrams that are in halfway stages of completion. So I wasn't going to try to even bring those in. It would have just, I think, confused matters. And there's like a consolidated time chart, just like the consolidated gate chart and that kind of thing. Most importantly, there's a chart that consolidates the information we've been given on when Rouchet pillars are activating, activation dates and that kind of stuff, where they're located. That was been driving me bananas, because there's so many things you have to keep track of where they're located. You can't find any of them. That's how it is in our house, because you have it someplace, but you have piles of paper like this high from every workshop you come back from. You never get time to integrate them. But finally, we have all that information, including the starburst dates for each pillar on 1 chart. So I think they're going to be some of the most valuable things because they're easy at-a-glance charts. So you'll have the information. And there are going to be times when there's going to be wacky stuff flying in the grids. And it doesn't hurt to know when, and it doesn't hurt to know where the gates are. Because if ever there is, you get a little tap on the inner shoulder, and if it ever happened, they would do it in a way personally that you would know what it meant, but you would be guided someplace if there was going to be a shield pull. It's only happened a couple of times on this planet where they've pulled the indigo and human shield if they could, and it doesn't always work. One was the fall of Brennaway. One was partially, they tried it in the Iani massacre, and as by the name of that noted point in history, it didn't work real well. Yeah. Because we got massacred. So we don't foresee that taking place. At least I don't think we foresee anything like that taking place. But I will say the fact that they're giving us this level of data this fast, convenient or not, implies that they're concerned about us, that they want us to be ready for something in case certain events happen. And what this is getting us ready for is, if in the event that it was necessary to pull the indigo and the human shields out because they weren't able to hold the grids here anymore, it would enable us to do that quickly. The starburst thing that your crystal body is capable of doing, if it is activated gently before the fact, and an event takes place where starburst frequencies start to run and let loose, your body will process them naturally, where they would hurt other people's bodies. All right, so we're being prepared that in the event that the planetary grids don't hold, if there was an evac, we would be able to do it. But they're not saying, we're coming home, guys, mission's up. No, shucks, no. Yeah. No, they're not saying that, and I'm only joking. It's not shucks. We've been in this for a long time, and we're not going to let go now. But there's a lot happening on the planet with the frequencies that are coming through. It's not a joke when the Rishite spiral is resetting. And we'll find out what that means more toward the end, because there's a bunch of crystal body stuff that we need to understand a bit about before we can take that even further down into the core of the crystal body, which is the pillar of power. And at the core of that is the Rishite spiral. And at the core of that, you have photo light cells, photo flame cells of the Eka. And there's a whole bunch of monadic stuff that I've got to struggle my way through because I'm still learning the monadic stuff. It gets very confusing when you're translating, because there's a million different types of units of radiation that interact with each other and create different types of sparks, and some spin this way, some spin that way, and they all create different parts of the anatomy that interacts with, in different ways. Now, it's fine if you're just going to describe it that way, but if you're actually going to put it down and publish it, like, we're translating the records here, you have to make sure you got those spins in the right directions. What did that have? That was 33 1/3. That was 11 2/3. That was 21 2/3. It's enough to make you nuts, actually. I'm really saying, please send somebody that's been trained in this level in, because I really hate this stuff. It's like, you passed the course when you were in school, but please don't make me teach it, because you really didn't like it. Like if you didn't like history, for example, and all of a sudden somebody says, now you got to go teach history. It's like, oh, yuck. I did what I had to learn. Yeah, this is hard, because I'll get graphs through, and they'll flip back and forth. And I'll have to sit there, I'll play with them, and I'll look at it and say, something about that doesn't feel right. So I'll put that one aside for a while, and then go to another one, and then come back to that one. Do I know yet? You have to wait for the pieces to come down, and they'll come down reversed, then they'll come down the other way, and you look at the two, and you go, which way is it? Does it go that way, or does it go this way? Does it go up? Does it go down? Which way is it? And it took a while to get some of these. But we do find out where flame body is, where the radius lines are, where the natus lines are, and useful things like that. And at the end of it all, what's nice is you can recode all of this stuff to be able to receive starburst from your own crystal body by using symbols on the chakras in specific ways, and by using the double arc sets. So it comes down again, lots of theory, enough to boggle your mind, but the techniques are not hard. Some techniques are long. I don't know if these are going to be long or short. I don't know if they're going to be a one-time only one and then you go into an easier one or what. But I do know this is to prepare bodies for planet doing starburst, because the grids are going to starburst. And a starburst doesn't happen all at once like a big bang. Well, it can, but when on a planet where there's like life left, it tends to not go that way. Because if it does, there's no life left. No, it's not going to go that way. It goes one pillar at a time. So you'd have pillar 1 after it activates, then that would starburst. And it literally means it hyperspaces and pops up in the parallel ecosystem. We're going over to visit the Adonai, which is really cool, because that's where a lot of us came from in the first place. That's where this Eka came from in the first place. What this is going to look like, I think, is a slow motion sliders, I think. And I'm really wondering if, you just kind of watch and you don't see anything move. Sometimes shifts are like that, where I've had a couple of times where I've moved through time period and I could tell something weird was going on. It was almost like surface events kept going as if nothing was going on. There was some really strange undercurrents of things, almost like it felt like you were being stretched and morphed inside and really weird stuff. And then all of a sudden you're boing back into shape again, and it all stabilized. And they taught me a long time ago that time shifts can look like that, feel like that, where your consciousness kind of slides And the insides of you, all of your energy parts, are actually doing all sorts of reconfiguration to the new time wave. But you're maintaining a stability level in the outer hologram. Hopefully it will go like that. But then again, is that hopefully? Because that'd be boring. We are Voyagers, after all. I really do hope at some point. This is no fantasy of mine. I've done it before, and ages ago we've been able to take groups through. But even in the time period, the Christ period, and as Miriam, we had a group really ready, and it just didn't work out where we could take them in, and we were rather devastated by it, actually, because we couldn't get the people out of the drama. They were going to get sucked into even worse stuff that was going on down here. And they'd come this close to being able to come back through host. They'd have to go through the Ark of the Covenant thing and that kind of stuff. So there's always this little hope that we do get to fulfill the Voyager's dream like it used to be, because that is the restatement. That is putting the foot down and saying, yes, we have reclaimed the original gene code here. We have reclaimed the angelic human divine potential, and we have put it back here. To be able to do that leaves a ripple all through this entire universe for everything and anything that was ever connected to us. So hopefully we'll get a chance to experience something like that in the physical, because it is possible, particularly now that we're going to do, the planet's doing starburst, because that is rapid reset. That is healing really quick because you have a virus that's trying to take you down. And that's how the planet is reacting to the frequencies that the Budharas are sending in. And it comes through on a biological level through the RNA. So they call it the retrovirus. And it's not just a retrovirus that affects biological DNA, which it does it affects the DNA through the RNA. And I believe it's the messenger, no, it's the transcription, I think, or it's the transcription RNA that it actually affects. So it changes what the RNA is supposed to code into the DNA, so it makes the DNA do something different than it's supposed to, where it misaligns. The misalignments are interesting. All of this comes down to something that is, I have rough drawings of it. I don't have it exactly perfect yet, but it's enough where you can see what I mean. Once you see Rishaté spiral, how it's supposed to look, how it works, how these tribal shield things that we've been using for the stands and stuff, how these plug in directly to the Rishaté spirals. Once you see how that works, you'll be able to see, too, how a certain mutation works. And it's a mutation that others are actively teaching you to make sure you activate it in your body. But it's really fascinating when you see what all of the mutation has created. It's a machine, actually. It's a biological machine, a twisted biological machine called the gravitron. And it's a set of vortices that manifest in the planet and therefore in the bodies of everything on the planet that create certain types of subatomic particles that were not ever meant to be created. The way the electron behaves right now is one of them. Yeah. The electron was supposed to have more to it than it does right now. It's a fragment of something else. It was supposed to have quarks. It was supposed to be built similar to protons and neutrons. The electron is a mutation that's created by the gravitron. So are gluons and muons and mesons and something else. Gravitons, yeah. So what we're calling our normal things, the substance is made out of, that matter is made out of, we are seeing mutated partial particles that have been reverse spin and bonded to something else that they weren't supposed to be bonded to in the first place. Our bodies are built on them right now. And this gravitron vortice has been working in slow motion since Atlantis. It went dormant when they stopped the top Merkaba spirals from spinning. It turned back on in the last 2 years as they started activating the vortices, the 3421 vortices. But now it's getting a kick from the Budhara wormholes. And with the power that they're amping through it, it has the power to literally override the third of the grids that we have. And that's why the planet and the Eka itself is responding with resetting the entire pillar. It's going to move right through the mutation and anchor into the natural shield to anything that has any of the natural shield left. So it's something big that we're going into, because the spiral that I talk about that runs through the body is also precisely the pattern of the spiral of the DNA. And where the mutation is, that we'll be able to see how it works in terms of spiral in the body, it also shows you a bit of what's happening in the DNA. And it means that with this spiral, well, now that we're working with this pillar of power spiral, we're going right in to the DNA program itself. So it ought to be fascinating to see. I mean, we've been getting, but we get them so often because we've been activating rapidly. Every time we have grid work that has to be done, there goes another zap, I mean, with the heat flashes, the whole bit, it's like, permanent hormone therapy needed, but this is taking it to a whole new level of biology. So what I want to do is I want to go out for the 5 minutes I was going to do 20 minutes ago, and sequence these just to make sure to retouch base with where I started, because I think I'll probably, you guys know enough where I don't have to go through the. We did this in Cathar 1, because you know this stuff, most of you, I think. Yeah, and I mean, because I think this is supposed to be a master's workshop. You never know, though, because I'll say, well, everybody knows the Cathar grid, right? And once in a while I'll say, I don't know. So how did that person get here? You're supposed to have 3 different courses before you came, But people do come. And I try to accommodate everybody. We do our best. But this one, I think we're going to start. I'll probably start about 15 pages in. Okay, so I'm going to take that. I'm going to take a 5 just so I can sequence these and then come back. Then we're going to get into it. And I really want to get you into the crystal body phases because it's quite fascinating, particularly where I will learn more because as I talk about the diagrams, it comes through live and I get to hear it too, where it's like it's on a roll and the plate's open and I can access more and stuff I didn't know I knew, well I didn't, comes through and I can learn it so we can all learn it together. So I'm looking forward to that. We can all learn this together. I'm going to take 5 and get these sequenced. And what are we going to do? Or they're not done being printed yet, you said, right? That late? Okay. Which is? All right. Yeah, that's true. Well, why can't they get those parts later?
Yeah, that's what she said.
It's only 4, yeah. So they can get the rest now?
That's all right.
They got that already?
They've got it.
You got it already. Great. That was quick.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, good. The end bit? Yeah, that's okay.
We're all square.
That's okay. Great. Great. So actually you can start peeking, which is fun. Good. So I'm going to go and sequence these, and then we can start to play with graphs. Oh, boy.
That's what you want.
Part of me is so tired of graphs right now, I could scream.
This is the...
All I did was turn it on. I don't need to go through this whole set of beginning stuff like this.
You do or you don't?
No. I'll start with this one. For a general presentation, but these guys know this stuff already.
So where are you going? Number 15 or something?
No, I'll show you which one. Let me find it. I don't know the number. I have to find it. I think I'll start there. With this one. Wait. This one and then this one. It'll take me right into K23, and I can move through that. But, I want to make a visual linking sequence, and then go right into just the body stuff. That's an ancient relic. Right. At this point, it's really neat because they're starting to plug in ancient relics to contemporary stuff. Why is this doing this? I hear feedback. Anyway, this is just to give us we're getting ready for a visual sequence that's going to lead us through what we know and quickly into stuff that we haven't heard yet. And I like to do this because they've told me the visual sequencing is important. This sounds funny out there, doesn't it? It sounds funny up here. We're getting like a canned laughter effect. What do I do with that? Any idea? Is he back there? He's back there. Oh, there you are. Okay. Oh, is that part of what it is? Okay. Oh, okay. Great. I know nothing about the sound equipment at all. I'm surprised I know how to use a microphone, sort of. Anyway. Should I maybe stand somewhere else? Would that help?
No, it doesn't matter.
It's not going to matter. It's still going to do that. Okay. Did it hold it down here? Okay. Anyway, we have our good old transduction sequence. Now, the transduction sequence, it's really interesting, especially when you get it all in pieces. And it's like, gee, what comes first in this sequence? Well, we know the Cathar grid was there. There's a lot of pieces to this sequence. And I had no idea how many pieces of this sequence there were. You can put the next one up, please, honey. When we first got the 2-3 program, K23 beginning, It kind of came through like this. We have all these pieces, whatever sequence, who knows, right? We knew that we had catharic grid. We knew we had shields. We knew we had this funny thing, that crystal body, and that was the closest thing at the computer graphics I could find that did crystal-shaped type things. Had no idea what this was. Oh, boy. Well, we're going to learn a lot about this today, and it looks nothing like that. You know, it looks like this. Many layers of this. So the exciting part is when we find out what this is about, and the fact that we're walking around with one that's been turned off for a very long time, thanks to the planetary axis tilt. All of this has to do with the fact that in the crystal body apparatus that is the anatomy of the crystal body, there are very specific alignments of energy that allow for the currents from the Lota level to come down into the Lotum level, and the Veka systems that come down into our bodies, into the atoms that we're made of. When you have a distortion and a misalignment in some of the internal crystals that are within the larger crystal, it literally shuts the gates that are open, that are running the live energy from the Eka. And that's the condition that this planet has been in for a very long time now. So what we're going to be learning to do through this whole process is, first of all, to understand the basic parts of the anatomy so we know how to use them a little bit. And we're going to bring back the alignment between the levels of the crystal body. And that's no small feat. The crystal body is, if you kind of scan through some of the newer diagrams that are stuffed in between some of the older ones, we got more information on the crystal body sequence itself, where we kind of left it off in K23 with this flat thing called the Tilia projection screen. Well, now we see how it becomes three-dimensional, how this turns into things that are spheres within spheres and also crystals within crystals and all sorts of neat things. But when we first started out, we had this information. When the data first started to come, it was like, okay, what are we going to be learning, guys? All of this, right? I said, well, what goes first? It took forever just to get this somewhere relatively like, okay, this is somewhere up in between here and here. This goes with this, and it has to do with the flames, the ethos etheric flames and that kind of stuff. Then we had the flame body things that we learned through the Dance 4 program, but anybody that didn't take the Dance 4 program had no idea those things existed, so it had to be stuck in Cathara 2. Technically, if there had been time, Cathara 2 would have dealt exclusively with flame body stuff. And then we would have proceeded nice and easily into Cathara 3 that would have done crystal body. We didn't have time for that because we need to activate and realign our crystal body with the natural alignments. So we still have the ability to do that, because if we don't do it now, we're not going to have the ability to do it in the next few years. So it's like now or never. And that's why they're giving us the data now. And we don't have to remember everything, but being exposed to it at least once or twice is important, because the mental body is also an energy body, and it holds a crystalline structure right now that matches the planet's buckyball structure. And every time we bring in the higher frequency information that tells the truth about the structures, it pokes holes in the buckyballs. It gives the ability to run more of those higher frequencies in. And one of the biggest con jobs on the planet is these guys say, oh, that's just mental body stuff. You know, it's not spiritual. Excuse me, you're not going to get that spiritual body into that mental body or the physical body. If you have a bunch of distortion fields around here and you're in there at the center and you can't get the larger fields of what you're connected to in. So all of this is about healing the crystal body, which is the mechanism by which your matter body is created. Right now our matter bodies have trapped us in time. They've trapped our consciousness here. And it's kind of, there's in the New Age movement that you'll say, oh, it's just a state of mind. I can just think myself out of it. Well, good luck. You're going to be thinking your DNA out of it too, I suppose. Because this is not just a fluffhead problem. This is a real biochemical environmental problem. And it affects every life form on the planet. What we're doing now is exciting, because we're not only giving ourselves back the potential of our own eternal life reality. And even if we don't fully get the bodies through this time, we will get the rest of us through. And it would be just a matter, we have the ability to incarnate into the Hyalay pattern, which is the species line of the humans that have the ability to, or the humans are indigos. For our groups, it would be indigos. But we have the ability to incarnate, even if we didn't get the bodies through, to incarnate up into the next level through the bridge zone. So we won't get stuck here one way or the other. Our consciousness won't be trapped here anymore, which means we won't have to go through the cycles over and over and over again down here like we've been doing for a long time. Anyway, we can go on to the next one. If I spend this long in front of everyone, we'll be here till next Christmas. Just to touch base. I'm not going to read this all to you. This is just to remind you we're going to jump to section 7 in the K23 manual. Now this is where it started to get, interesting, right? That's where we got hit with templates, the crystal body templates, which the drawings were a bit challenging, I thought at the time anyway, until we had to make them three-dimensional. But that gave us the basic structure, so we could understand when we talk about the Eka body and the Veka body and those kind of things, how these templates, back to Kathara templates, but now we're dealing with embedded Kathara templates that have very specific relationships to other Kathara templates, that the entire universal structure and cosmic structure is built on interwoven embedded Kathara templates that interact with each other in specific ways. So we started with the templates, because if you don't understand the basic lay of the land there, you're going to be completely lost of how those other things came to be. What's nice about this system is it doesn't just say, here, you've got this. You've got a Merkaba. Great, what is it? It's a big thing shaped like a star tetrahedron, and you spin it this way and that way. Why? Because it opens a breathing tube. What does that do? You know, I mean, this shows you where this stuff comes from, and that's what the new stuff is about. It takes it from where K23 left off, with showing you templates and then going into, I think, Section 8 thingy is next somewhere in there. Oh, I don't know if we have to whip through those. I'm gonna touch base on a couple of the images from the templates section, because they're going to come up again in, let's say, more filled out ways. And I just want to point out, so you remember we learned this, just keep an eye on that, because you're going to see where that becomes something else by the end of everything. Like, not else, but there's more to it than just the, what we learned in the template. No, I'm going to put the one that was next, I decided. Yeah, there's just a couple of the images I want to touch base on. Might as well. Because there were so many pieces, even to the K23 stuff on templates, that once you get past that, it'd be, wait a minute, where did I start? Where were the Laradori caverns? How'd you spell that? That kind of thing. So we'd started with this stuff, where we showed that basically this is the outcome of template once it becomes filled out. When we did the Belize workshop, they identified this as the chariot of fire. Once it's connected to the Eka levels, and you have more spinning wheels, because these things spin. So this is our, it's kind of like being in your own little spaceship. That's our crystal body. But it starts with this, which was the Yanesa 15-cell seed atom, which is also the base shield, the Eka base shield. In K23, we were learning, and by the way, there is a formal technique on paper that is coming out with the K23 manual of axiom base shield bonding, which we did a little bit of when we did the tour, because we did a 24 tap code in, and they literally, it's programming mathematically. Think of all the times tap codes are used here and you don't realize it. Every time you dial a digital phone, everything that's run on numbers is a tap code. It doesn't matter if the tap is done with your fingers, which are electronic transmitter devices, or if it's done with pulses of electricity. This whole planet is being controlled by tap codes. And we're beginning to reset the natural tap codes that allow for base 24 frequencies of the LOTA to run here and higher ones. So it comes down to this base shield, but what we're going to find out as we move forward quite a bit, it'll probably be this evening that we'll hit this stuff, but this is not only the Eka base shield that's inside of the Akasha Merkaba on the Akasha level, and then the Eka forms in here, and then the Veka forms here, right? These are three-dimensional living light cells. They're orbs. They're actually Akasha-shaped. They're like grapes plugged into the center. And they phase back and forth with each other. They move. Right? We exist within them. The universes here exist within them, which is quite fascinating, because all of this comes down to how units of radiation are formed, and those units of radiation accrete in different ways at different angles to each other. They have different properties because of what happens when they crash into each other, and they progressively fill out and downstep, repeating patterns. They fractalize, and they create this pattern moving downward, moving downward. We are built on this pattern, and we look like this in our crystal body structure. We have the light cells. So we begin later to go into photo flame cells, as they call them. These are cells that are capable of photosynthesis, and they don't just need to be out getting a suntan. They do internal photosynthesis, and I can't wait, because when you really get them going, supposedly you tan from the inside out, which I think would be really, really useful. Yeah. But, yeah, because I tend to go like blue-white, and veiny. But This, if we can link from the beginning, while we're still back in template land, which is like, oh yeah, I remember that stuff, and I know I have the graph, so if I ever need to look something up, it's there. I mean, most people don't memorize it. If you do, bless you. If you do, I would say if you're making a real effort to memorize a lot of this stuff, don't wear yourself out, because there's going to be so many new levels of data coming. Just keep the books handy, where if you need to go back and find a bit of information, know where it is. Because you're going to have to keep purging cellular memory. At this point, don't ask me what we taught in Hawaii 2 or 3 years ago. Don't even ask me how many years ago it was, because I have to turn over my cellular memory about every 3 weeks at this point. I'm lucky I can remember my name and my kids' birthdays. It gets real intense. So if you try to remember all of this, if you get the gist, that's fine. If you're a detail person, I'm a Virgo, so I appreciate detail. But there is a level where you just surrender. Put up the white flag and say, I'm going to go have a nice cup of tea and go enjoy the sunset or something, because I just can't absorb anymore. So I hit that point. So if you hit that point, don't think it's you. Don't think it's, I must be slower, I got to push myself harder. You don't have to push yourself with this stuff. It's being put in written form this time, so it's available to you, because it's known that there's too much to learn too fast. Nobody expects us, with all the stuff we have to fix and heal in our bodies, to be able to hold all this data. That's why they go to the trouble of getting the communications down here, and we go to the trouble of translating them. Unfortunately, we have photocopiers. But this Echo Base shield is a shield, but it is also a shield that generates three-dimensional, in terms of height, width, and depth, forms. But they're much more than three-dimensional. They're 15-dimensional structures. This level is actually called the atomic level. The Echo level is called the atomic level, where when you take it down to the Vecca level, it would be the atomic level. So we'll be using the word atomic in some of this, and it refers to the Echo atomic level. So when you're talking about atoms and things of the physical matter of the Echo, it's the atomic. And if you're talking about the atoms and things that form physical matter in the Vecca systems, they're atoms. And there's a lot of phases of things in between those. You have etherics and catherics, and I'm just trying to learn this one. What was a catheric again? You have all sorts of flame cells and things like the Ka, the Ra, the Tha, the Sha. How about the Ah? I haven't found an Ah yet. But these are literal names, tonal resonance signatures of different light cells. When we get into a bit of the things we just introduced in Belize, which was a real ride, because I'd never heard of it before personally in this life. What am I teaching? What is a radon cell? We start to understand that these flame cells form. These would be the atomic flame cells of the Echo level. They actually form through a little cell that's at the center. It's known as the mother cell. It's called the matrodon. It has a counterpart called the petrodon that's in the parallel Echo, and together they form what's called the androdon, which is the androgynous one up at a higher level, in the Akasha levels, that had split to form the two. We're going to be dealing with the currents and the frequencies that are coming from those levels. But what's fascinating about the matrodon, and you think I would have got that faster, but it had to be pointed out to me, which means I must be tired. But the matrodon is a natural structure of the first phasing photocell. Phasing meaning it can do Partakai phasing, where it can make sparks. And if it can make sparks, it can self-generate sparks, it is capable of, well, here they say chemical process, so therefore it's a living system, right? Well, it's more than chemical process. You could call it process, because they call them chem cells, because they have to do with the flame of Kemelohati. And all of those things up there in monad land that we'll talk about later too, that are up here in the base shield level. But the chem cells that form through what's called the matrodon are the natural structure of light cells and how they're supposed to be positioned with each other, so they phase in specific ways, so they perpetually regenerate spark currents, and they can circulate them up and down, and they can downstep them and upstep them. They can make AC and DC current. And that's not a band. In my age, once upon a time, I know I'm getting old these days, but there was a band called AC/DC. But no, it simply means they can make direct current or they can make alternating current. And it's all about electronics, but on a very high level, because electronics are the carrier of consciousness here in any manifest world. And there are places, let's say states, I wouldn't say places, I would say states of cognition, that when you completely are gone from the manifest systems, all the way up to the top and pop back through the original hole, right? Back into full at one minute with Source. It is a different type of cognition. There is no light, there is no sound, there is no movement, there is nothing and everything all at once. And it's very difficult to even attempt to fathom what that might mean when you're in a system that has light and sound and movement and color and time and space and matter and all that neat stuff that makes you feel like you're separate from Source in the first place. You're really not, but you can really get stuck down here, and you can be a part of Source as space dust, or you can go back and remember the whole process and bring that memory back as a part of the living memory matrix of Source itself. That's what Source set the whole thing in motion for, to experience itself and to know itself and to give, because there's a nature of Source that is what you could call pure love, the desire to give. And if there's no one to give to, I imagine it wouldn't feel too great if you were of a giving nature, and that we were given the gift to be like Source. So Source was giving a gift to itself, the ability to give to something outside of itself, even though it was inside of itself. Anyway, I'm not going to go on that one because we'll be on a different workshop. But Eka base shield turns into the flame cells of the Eka. These cells, there's not just the 15. There are the 15, but at the center, there is something that's called the matrodon that is the mother of the etherics. This is where the frequencies of the etheric blueprints come from. The etheric blueprints are not just shields. These are three-dimensional, height, width, depth blueprints coming all the way down through the Veka. This serves as the living morphogenetic field, the invisible field of structure behind the manifest structure, the invisible sticky tape that spark units attract to in very specific ways to fill out the forms of matter. Morphogenetic fields are called the etheric fields and the catheric fields. They are formed by the matrodon, which is a set of cells that comes from the parallel Eka. So they are a set of female cells because in the particular twin set of the Eka and the parallel, our Eka happens to be male. Now we happen to be the female PCM universe in the Veka of that male Eka, but there is a female twin Eka system that is the twin counterpart of this Eka. The matrodon cell is a set of photocells that are of the current of the Le'adore, as opposed to the Eka here, Le'atore flame. And they are set within the Le'atore flame. And when you put the female and the male together, they give birth. And they give birth to the Kemelohati flame. And that is a flame of actually 360 current, which is a step down from the Akasha level, 360 current. So there's this whole process that I'll talk about more when I have those diagrams up. But I want you to, when I do get to those diagrams, remember when we went through real quick templates, that these are directly connected to these. You have these as flame cells that emerge because of the little seed in the center that is the matrodon that comes from the parallel Eka that sets phasing of light in motion. Now, phasing of light, or phasing of units of radiation that creates the effect of light and of sound, is fascinating, and that's what all of our technicals are going to be about, really, because we are a replica of a living matrodon cell. Now, right now we're a little bit out of kink, and that out of kink is a mutation that takes place because of bending certain things in the Veka frequencies in ways they're not supposed to be. The matrodon has been mutated into something else called, guess what? Come on, somebody guess. Yes, yes. The matrodon is the natural. The Metatron is a twisted matrodon. And that's what that whole movement is about. And it's about black hole machines, and it's about twisted mechanics, and that kind of thing. That's where the name comes from. It's not some big great God in the sky, any more than the matrodon or the Eka itself is. Now, yes, it is conscious. So are they. So is the matrodon. So are each of the flame cells. So are each little unit of consciousness that floats around as atoms here. Everything is conscious, so therefore everything is identity. However, the matrodon is the original. The Metatron is a bending of frequencies and a realigning of how natural units of radiation in these core flame cells are supposed to interact with each other. It's twisting that. So they interact a little differently, and they create something that they're not supposed to. They take particles and antiparticles and etheric units and catheric units and atomic units and twist them in ways to make new types of atomic units that were never part of the original creation, and they're not they're finite life. They're not eternal life because they're not capable of sparking in a natural way
the only way they can spark to create light and life force themselves is to suck life force off of other things. And unfortunately, a good portion of the molecular base on this planet right now is metatronic. It is created, most of it's electrons running around amok. And there are certain characteristics to electrons. They haven't got in. I'm almost afraid of when they get into this level where they start to explain exactly what electrons are supposed to do. That means I have to go read the books and what they're doing in the first place, just so I have something they can anchor the information into. Because I never studied that stuff. I never really wanted to know. But I guess if I have to, I will. But all of this comes back to the Echo base shield. And it's amazing because you have physics down here, and there's a lot of people who are physicists that are very nice, and there's a lot of people who are physicists who are extremely convinced of their own superiority of understanding of the way the universe works, because they've been able to identify units of things here. They know quarks. They know what quarks are. They know up quarks, down quarks. They know the 6 flavors. They know all of that kind of stuff. Oh, boy. And that's really cool. Because, boy, I could really probably, write books forever and ever if I had all that information. I'm glad I don't, actually. But what they don't know yet, and a lot of them don't want to know, is what's behind that. They're looking at effects still and trying to theorize about causes, as if the causes weren't already there, as if somebody might not know them. They are known. This information used to be here. What we're being shown are the templates, and then what fills out to be the structures that create the atoms and the effects the physicists are looking at. So people that are physicists, sometimes we get people that are trained in, as physicists that come here, and bless them, because they have the knowledge base to take this and run with it. This is about the same type of thing, but on a much larger level. This is about phasing photocells that are self-regenerating, that can literally create electronic currents that can upstep and downstep into any type of electronic current you want, that can create holographic TVs look like ancient technology compared to what the living life force itself does. So it's really exciting because this is where spirit and matter meet. And any movement that teaches you there's a difference between the two is trying to hide something, or it just doesn't remember. The truth is, our matter is just as spiritual as our spirit. They're made out of the same substance. There's no difference except frequency range. And right now we're trapped in our matter bodies because they're not able to bring in the natural frequencies that they're supposed to be part of. So all of this stuff gets into base shield. Yep, says template for your 15 cells. And at the center, you have your little magic button. And we all have a magic button. We all have several magic buttons because there's a series of them that are implanted in the process of anchoring the monadic beam that we've talked briefly about in other work. About what sets life in the Eka in motion, or in the Eka-Veka system in motion, is when the monad anchors the seed atoms. And that's like, okay, we know we've got these things. We haven't talked much about them, and I've dreaded it because I get totally confused because it starts to come down where you have, how many flames do you have? What level were they on? Which way is it spinning again? What was the charge on that one? And that one combines with which one to form what? And that's name is what? And you have ectoses and dystoses and nattoses, and it gets really nuts when you take it right off the plates. The plates are really sophisticated. They're not meant for really to be translated in a place where there's so many mutations in the grids because it fragments them to death, where you have like a library scattered at your feet with pages ripped out of all the books, and you're kind of trying to find like 1 or 2 classics there because you'd really like to read them, and you just sit there and sift through pages and pages and say, that type style looks similar to that one. It might be part of the same book or maybe the same series. And you have sparks, which are like little sparks, radiation sparks from main seed flames. And this is where it gets really confusing up here. We'll get into some of it when I get into the Matrodon level. But in basic terms, we have the Leadore, which is on the parallel Eka side. And that has its whole set of flames here. They come out of a 360 to begin with. This is called the Adandrea Amareya flame. And they split, they polarize. Flames polarize through the process of phasing within themselves. They don't polarize and run away from each other. They polarize within themselves and expand themselves out from the inside by the process of creating sparks between the poles that they've created. They are tripolar, meaning they are not just bipolar, where they have a positive and a negative electrical pole, or what we call the magnetic pole and the electrical pole, but they also have a positive, negative, zero pole, which means it's capable of having any of those 3 charges. So it can interact with positive or negative, and it stays as a stationary kind of point unto itself that the other 2 are attached to. So every pole implies its opposite and also implies the original that the 2 came out of in the first place, at least in natural units, in natural consciousness, in natural light units, in natural photocells. You will always have a trinity. When you have distortions in the crystal body structure, it is possible to manufacture falsely. And believe me, it takes a lot of work to twist the crystal body to the degree that it can manufacture Shona crystals, which are crystals that are based on 2 as opposed to 3 units. It means they can be bipolar, but they never have the ability to reunite their polarities into unity again. And they can speak all they want about unity consciousness and opening your heart, but it's not going to change the fact that if you're working on a bipolar system, you're not going to turn yourself into a trinity. It requires the third element of union, out of which the 2 had originally come. And if you cut it off from its original source, you're not going to be able to bring the 2 poles together, because nothing will be exactly like that except the place where the 2 originally started as the 1 unit. Now, in the process of phasing of light units or atoms or big light cells or tiny little microscopic light units, the process of phasing isn't about the original being destroyed. It's about the original actually giving itself, but replicating itself as it does. So it replaces itself. So there's a constant regeneration. You don't lose that third element in the creation of the 2 because it replicates as it gives itself into the polarity and allows itself to be split. It simultaneously recreates another of itself, and that sparks. Once the polarities spark, they actually regenerate the charge. So it's a whole process of charge regeneration, and it works on what's called the Christ code that we've talked about a number of times before. There's much more to the Christ code than the little bit that it's been explained to us. It gets into angles on spirals and all sorts of things like that. But it's basically the 33 1/3 positive electrical to the 11 2/3 negative pole electrical. And together they had come out of a 45. Now you take it up higher than that, and you have the 45s that come together. We have 490s, and then the 490s form the 360. And this is all about flames that start out as 360, a full circulation of energy, breaking themselves down through the process of phasing into smaller flames. These flames are standing waves, standing elliptical waves of radiation that perpetually phase within themselves and continually generate sparks. Those sparks accrete or come together into currents that move backwards, forwards, upwards, downwards. It's spark pulse currents. Every current, every waveform in the universe is created from a spark pulse current. That means everything has a base pulse rhythm, the rhythm at which its particle or its units phase in and out. That's what a base pulse rhythm is. It is the how fast or how slow the rhythm of particle phasing is, all the way up through its shields. Now, the natural structure in the Christ code, it runs on a base 12. It's base 12, base 24, base 48. It works on that system. When you get into the Metatronic code and things like that, they're twisted. They have some sophisticated things like the Fibonacci spiral that, yes, you can see in nature. Of course you can on a mutated planet. What do you expect? I mean, gosh, yes, you can see it. It's actually a twist, a little bit wrong angle on the spirals because they're missing a few numbers instead of having a cycle of octaves. We've talked about this briefly, about the cycle of the octaves that has to do with the Eka base shield. And if you divide this way, and this way on a 6-axis, you actually get 8 pieces. That gets into the 6 cycles of expansion and contraction, after which there is a 7th acceleration cycle and an 8th leap cycle, which allows something to grow and expand back up to the next level that it came from. We're on a planet right now that has had its shield, its time codes have been blocked in a way that it goes to cycle 6 and then goes backwards and has to go back around to cycle 6. It cannot make the leap into the 7th and 8th cycles, which means it's stuck in its growth pattern. It means its spiral is tighter and twisted compared to the natural angles that continued growth. And then growth expands to a certain level, whatever was in the original pattern. Let's say you were God and you decided to create a thought form, and you had put X amount of energy into that thought form. Well, there'd be 6 cycles till it fully expands itself. But then where's it go? Well, then it goes backwards again, and then it comes back out again. So it's perpetual motion. There's the inward and outward. There's an interesting thing in one of the books that I came across not too long ago. So something about that God didn't know how to, I think it was on the golden mean rectangle. Something about the effect that, it's a perfect rectangle because it goes in and out, forever in both directions. But God didn't know how, nature didn't know how to do that. So it settled for the Fibonacci spiral. What? Yeah, right? That sounded a little Like, would you like to explain that one to me? Nature didn't know how to do the golden mean, right? So it did the Fibonacci instead. Well, I guess nature on a planet where you have your electrons turned inside out and upside down and half ripped apart probably doesn't know how to. But God knew how to. Because basically, I do believe, and I haven't taken it down into the, because I really, really don't like that level of geometry stuff. It's just not my thing. I hate numbers. You know, playing with numbers is not my thing. But I do think that the natural structure is probably the golden mean, but it's not the twisted version of it that's twisted into Fibonacci. It is the spiral that creates the tube torus that goes inward and outward continually, 6 cycles, then a leap cycle, which has the acceleration and the leap. The acceleration is Hetharo and Hethalon. They're not all called Hes. And I wouldn't doubt if they're Shethalons. I don't know. I didn't ask. But they are Aros, A-R-Os, and they're Alans. And there's various prefixes that go before those, that depending on whether you're on your planetary level, on the personal level, you're talking tiny cycles, you're talking massive cosmic cycles. So it is a very natural process to have the cycle of the octaves, which means it's a whole cycle that all of the frequencies on a base 12 shield are actually brought into expression. And after that's fully expressed, it can either jump to the next level of the shields that it's a part of, because all shields are embedded within bigger shields that are all embedded within Source as its first shield, the Manu, Mene, and Ire. So you can either jump or go backwards. You don't have to go backwards if you can make the jump. We're in the middle of a jump, by the way. We're in the middle of a very rocky jump right now. And right now the planet has frequencies that are pulling it, trying to force it to not be able to finish the 7th cycle and go into the 8th. Because right now we're in the 7th cycle. We just got done with the 7th cycle. We got done with Hetharo and Hethalon. We just entered Rishite Reset. Rishite Reset cycle where the pillars are coming back in. The reason we're getting a lot of information given to us right now is because we are in a very delicate phase of this. We had just entered what they call the 8th exhale. And in the system of the inhales and exhales, they start with exhales, where the inhale was the still point that the first exhale expansion came from. So when we count our 6 cycles, it always starts with exhale 1, inhale 1, exhale 2, that way. Well, we're in the 8th exhale, beginning of the reset cycle where the leap is supposed to take place. It's a very vulnerable place because this is when the breathing tubes of the planet open. And if they are not aligned properly, or if something hits them in a way where they misalign, it can create absolute havoc on a planet. And that's what the effect of having the gravitron twisted vortices being accelerated in their activation is doing. So we're being given technologies that will help us get through this and help our planet get through it as well. Anyway, back to the shields. We're going to go quick to the next one, or if I do this for every one, it will take forever to get to the last ones, won't it? These are just basically, again, showing you the basic structures which the templates were created on. You have the Eka Cathara grid, and you have the parallel Veka. It's a parallel system here, PKA system. You have our system, Cathara grid. Now, these are the universal level ones. Remember, each one of these would have its whole density set embedded within it going down. And somewhere at the center of this one is a little tiny U that's the big U here. So you have lots of levels of self going all the way up. You have the 4 density levels of self. It gets really interesting when you find out. There's one diagram in there I love where you've got one self down below your feet upside down, and you got another one up above your head upside down. I thought it was bad enough when we were dealing with the dance floor material where we had one sticking out our side. I mean, now we got them all over. It's like, it gets funny after a while, the anatomy, when you start to see how it all comes together to actually create the 3-dimensional hologram that you call your body. But we have an ethos self that's down below us, upside down, and we have an eros self, our sound self. These are our sound and our light bodies. The ethos is the light body, and the eros is the sound body. And when they come together and they phase together properly, like they're supposed to, they continually recreate the matter body as an eternal life system. This is where we're going to learn about the pillar of power and how we're supposed to phase like light cells because we are light cells. But right now we're not able to phase, and that's why our bodies die. That's why they get sick, because they can't generate spark pulse current inside anymore. They can circulate, but they can't generate. They can circulate a limited amount of current from the seed atom, and when the seed atom burns out, they have nothing more to circulate, so they die. The bodies die, and the consciousness has to move to something else and creates another body. It has to reincarnate when it wasn't intended to have to do that. Some things were created to reincarnate, certain types of animals and plant species and those kind of things. But humans and indigos were never created to have to go through that. But that is the only option that's been available for a long time, and it's because our systems can't phase. Now in this, when we learned about the templates, we learned about the laetore chambers. These are chambers that form pillars, seer pillars, just like when we're doing a round and we make that big round seer pillar by spinning our Merkabahs. These are massive seer pillars. We have the laetore chambers and we have the shalaya chambers that come this way. They actually form from the spinning of the vortices. If you can see in this diagram a little bit more, you have the dark thing highlighted showing you the Eka template. But in here, there are vortice systems. These are the Ruche vortices that come off the Ruche template. And these are spinning vortices of energy. They form between them these pillars. So these actually come off the vortices that run this way, that would run with the Eka. They form at the other angle the laetore chambers. So the Eka laetore chambers are higher frequency. They're atomic, let's say, Eka atomic, as opposed to, but they're also mixed with etheric, so I'm using that loosely, but they are affiliated directly with the Eka. Where when you come down here, you have these vortices here that go with this particular set goes with the antiparticle Veka system. They form the shalaya chambers. You have the Shaddai and the Shaddam chambers. Shaddam are formed here by our particum Veka system. So what it means when you put them all together is you have this interesting set of chambers. You have one set of laetore chambers going this way, and then you have the shalaya chambers coming this way. These are pillars that literally, if you ever get to walk through them physically, it's like walking through massive tunnels of light, and it's really beautiful. They're kind of like the Slider TV show, where you see massive portals that look like water. It's a type of hydroplasma, and it doesn't feel wet though. When you go in it, it sort of feels like water, but you don't feel wet. It's interesting. It's an interesting medium from here. It's very natural because it's what you're made out of on the higher levels. But when yourself from here actually gets to have its flesh, even if you're just doing it in an astral projection, even your astral body kind of goes, oh, cool, that's neat. Because you touch in heliotalic frequency. Heliotalic means it's coming from the central sun, which is the Eka. The Eka is the central sun of any universe, any universal system. And it may have many, many galaxies and universes within it. You know, an Eka isn't just like one sun. Like our sun is not an Eka. That is a little sun, a little star in the middle of a very, very large system that has at its core a central sun that is the Eka. The central sun is what holds the core flames, out of which the seeds of radiation that allow phasing and the creation of light to happen in the other systems, they all came out of an original singular flame. And the phasing of its matrodon or petrodon on the other parallel Eka side. So the flames are the key to what is called the monad. The monad is simply a smaller replica of the phasing original first cell. It's the first creation imprint, is another way that the matrodon cell has been described, as the first creation imprint put in the Eka base shield, and that's what sets life in motion in a system. It is a spark that sparks and phases, and once it phases, it doesn't stop, and it continually creates currents that continually expand out larger light cells, following the pattern that's in the shields. So the mathematical pattern of what's going to be manifested is held within the shield and the 15-cell seed atom pattern, and anything that wants to come into that system, it will have its consciousness mathematically translated and become a part of the shield, and then it will become able to manifest in a system. But everything that comes into a system, just like it needs to take on whatever the particular 15-cell seed atom imprint is of that system, it also has to take on its matrodon or its petrodon imprint. And that's what our monad imprint is. It's a small version of for us on this side of the Eka, it is a small version of the matrodon that allows the photo flame cells of the Eka to each send a cord down and anchor into the manifest body. Those cords can be severed if the crystal body structures that stand between where we are and the manifestation is and the Eka flame cells themselves. If the misalignments occur to the degree where those cords are stretched and then broken and their transmission lines can no longer intersect, That's how you can literally get cut off from your monad. And once it's cut, once its cord is cut, it can be reversed. It can be sent in a different direction. It can be polarized to a different unnatural polarity. It can be turned Metatronic. Once it's turned Metatronic, it can't be brought back because it's forcing together two templates that were never meant to be together. And once they bond, they do bond, and you have to shatter both of them. So they go back to space dust. That's the way Metatronic templates can go back home. They have to shatter, which is okay. It's holy to be space dust. Personally, I'd much rather go back as space dust than have to deal with any of those guys anymore. I mean, if it came down to whether I was going to like make deals and go down their black hole with them just so I could survive, or whether I just go, give me that portal. I don't care if my DNA can handle it or not. I'm going home. Space dust is holy. It is. But you don't remember anything once you do that. And there is an advantage to going back whole. At least you can tell them when you get home what it was like. There's a lot of advantages. Anyway, we have the chambers. These chambers become key later when we start to talk about the breathing tube. The breathing tube is a part of the anatomy that runs all the way through the crystal body, and it is what anchors something called the rainbow ray. There is a rainbow ray that becomes what's called the Ruchete spiral. That is literally the cords that link right up into the seed cells of the 15-cell seed atom and their etheric counterpart, which are the phasing cells of the matrodon. So naturally, we in our crystal bodies have this connection through our monad. We still have enough of our monad left, particularly people who've been working the techniques, and the people who've been working the techniques have gifted this planet, because there's a lot of people out there that would have gone Metatronic already if it hadn't been for the work you guys are doing, because you're putting the imprint of healing back into the shields. And if they have a little bit and they can establish a co-resonance, they can pick up a line that allows them to start bringing in these frequencies. This is about reconnecting to your original monad, not just here, but what your monad's connected to in the echo level. And it's a great tether line, because with that tether line, back to your original creation imprint in the echo, whatever the grids do here, whatever direction they get pulled in, you will be able to hold yourself, your manifestation, and your consciousness in alignment with the eternal life pattern. If you're choosing Christos, you will still be able to make that choice. And that's precious. For the people who a long time ago made a choice and realized too late it was the wrong one, a lot of them are still very angry. And people often, any people, even people stuck here that are, wonderful indigos and, indigo angels and don't realize it, when you've done something really stupid, one of the first phases of facing it is usually not facing it, where you blame everybody else. Oh, well, that did it to me, or the government did it to me, or God was unfair to me, or whatever. It's when you do that, you completely disempower yourself. Because you're saying, I had no response, or I didn't do this. No, well, who did? You're the creator here. You made a choice, you got a consequence. You don't like the consequence, do you? Maybe you won't make the same choice again. Now, that's the natural way of growing. We say, oh, okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I am disempowering myself by not owning up to the messes I make, aren't I? Because then you don't learn to not make messes. You don't learn to make better choices. There are groups on this planet and all through this universe who still refuse to accept the fact that they made choices. They were warned, they were asked, they were pleaded not to make the choices they did, as far as experimenting with forcing shields together that didn't belong there. They made the choices, and they don't have the ability to come back without going to space dust first. And they're angry. And one of the things about being twisted and not being able to tap into the consciousness where pure love reigns is you forget what it means to be loving. And if you're angry, you take your anger out on other people. And if you can't have something, you get angry if somebody else can, so you try to take it away from them. Right now, there's a lot of beings incarnating on this planet that are in that predicament. We can't help them much. You can still love them, but love them wisely, because these are people who can't love you. And if they can't love you, they might be able to grin in your face and pretend they love you. Oh, watch for that one, because some of them tend to be very good at that. But don't let them make your choice for you. If you're making a choice for Christos, you're being given back the knowledge of how to do it. You've never been asked to worship an angel in these workshops, not at once. You've been told there are people that know how to do this stuff, that have held the frequencies here. You've been told you have your own Christos deep within you. And now you're being shown kind of a portrait of what that own Christos looks like. When we get into this a little bit, there's one diagram I absolutely love of the new ones, where they call it the body of Christ, the Son of God. We each have one. And it's not a boy either. It's neutral. But these words meant something once upon a time. But sun didn't mean S-O-N. It meant S-U-N. When we get to the one diagram, there's going to be more on this series, but there was only time to do the one that I got really excited about that we'll see in a little while. It was about pulsars. Did you ever notice how some stars pulse off and on? Now, some look like they do, but they're actually not. But science, when they look with their, like instruments and stuff, they can tell which ones are actually cycling pulses. That is a living star. Why? It's expanding and contracting inside of itself. It's breathing. That's natural. When you see stars, they just shine. They're expending their seed atom energy, and they'll eventually burn out. Now, pulsars can do really neat things, like look like they explode, but they went somewhere else. They didn't necessarily explode. They folded up, went, left a little bit of photonic radiation floating around, and decided to leave, and manifested somewhere else. Now, our bodies, our crystal bodies, are built like suns, like natural living suns. They're like pulsars. And I don't know a lot about pulsars. I haven't studied this stuff in science down here, but there's something called pulsar plasma waves that our body is supposed to continually cycle. This is where we get our natural life force. The echolota, when its crystal body sends frequency in to the flames in our crystal bodies here, it sends it in the form of plasma waves, pulsar waves. They pulse and cycle. There's an exhale and then an inhale where the energy comes out of our system, goes back there. Then it comes back out of there and back into here. All through these sets of flames, through our monad, through something called the moda adhure, and if I really want to confuse myself, I'll try to talk about that. It's a series of flames that operate as etheric ducts in the body systems that anchor frequencies from another set of things called radon cells, which are like storage units and transformers. The radon cells that we'll talk about too in a little while are replicas of the matrodon, but they have different names because they're step-down versions in the Vecca system. And what they do is they actually take energy in when the crystal body around you, your own crystal body, low T crystal body, is breathing energy in to the center, which means feeding the systems down here. The frequency comes from the outer crystal body down into the inner pillar. But it doesn't just rush into the pillar and then flood into the manifestation. It goes first into the storage cells, which are the radon cells. And then under certain conditions of sparks building up within the breathing systems down here and in your pillar here, it'll trigger opening of the radon cells. At the same time, it triggers the outer crystal body pulling frequency out of the pillar, pulling spent energy out of the pillar and sending it back to the LOTA for recharging. That's when the radon cells will release new energy into the pillar, and that's when you start to exhale down here, out a new manifestation cycle. So this whole process of breathing that gets really confusing. If you think it's confusing trying to get your arcs and your pillar going at once, try 2 sets of arcs going. One goes up, the other goes down while the other one's going up. One inhales while the other exhales. So it's real fun. This is what we're going to learn how to do. We're going to learn how to breathe with our pillar and breathe with our 2 sets of arcs, the ones that go with the outer crystal body structure and the ones that are the density ones down here, so we can start getting them to phase, because they've actually been dormant, because the density ones have been, it's as if somebody grabbed the petals and ripped them down this way to that 60-degree angle and then nailed them to a cross where they couldn't move. And if they couldn't move, the other ones up above them, the larger ones, wouldn't cycle either. So literally the crystal body of the planet, of this universe, has been slowly dying because it has not been able to phase, which means whatever seed atoms in the different levels of anatomies here that were given in the first place, they have X amount of charge in them. If they can't replenish that charge, eventually they do burn out, and then the form will disappear. It will go through annihilation and turn back to space dust and just kind of like float around in the Vecca arena, and it won't get back up into the higher arenas. It will be reassembled by other things that come into creation. It will be, well, when you're space dust, you're basically building blocks for other things to build their consciousness on. It's much, I think, more, I prefer anyway, being something that's uses building blocks to build my consciousness on. I think I'm done with the being a building block cycle, I hope. Anyway, we can move past these. I'm light years ahead of those, actually, at this point. Yeah. If I bop around a lot, my brain does this, particularly when I'm tired, but so do they when they're kind of moving me to connect dots. And right now, we're connecting a bit of new stuff you've never heard of and stuff that you should be somewhat familiar with, if not, some of you are quite familiar with. Again, we're back still in the template areas. I love this one. It's so simple without the numbers. It's pretty without the numbers. These are all the signet alignments. And remember, signets are simply the Kathara centers on a Kathara grid. They are stargates on the planetary and universal levels, and they are stargates inside your body as well. So these are just the templates. This shows the shield alignments of the Eka and the Veka systems inside of it. So they're just simple templates. We went from templates into where it got real fun, because when we did the Kathara 2-3 manual, we couldn't even describe what Section 8 was. Actually, we started Section 8, and we're waiting for the transmission on, okay, Section 8 does this. It tells you about this, and this is because of this. And then it teaches you this so you can learn how to use this, right? Yeah, we waited for that page for a long time. Yeah, I know. You're part of it. And then, yeah, I lost it about 6 times. Half of it had come through. And it was like somebody up there decided, no, let's wait. Let's give them more than that, right? And just put it on hold, and I couldn't get the rest off. It wouldn't come off the plate. What is this? How do we get this manual done? Because people are waiting for it. And, Max going, people are really wanting to order it over here. We really got to get it done. I'm trying. Yeah. We finally got Section 8. So, see, when the new Kathara 2-3 manual thing itself is going to have some new pages in. Some of them, you guys will have a lot of those pages as far as the pictures go. But there are some other things that are specifically for Kathara 2-3 that aren't really about what this workshop is about. They get into the schedules and all that kind of stuff. They will be in there, like recommended schedules of how often you do what. That's really useful when you have 5 million techniques to choose from. Right? I've never counted how many in the last 5 years, how many techniques we've brought through, but it must be an awful lot. Yeah. What's really wonderful is you guys have been using them. I'd love to see. I'm not a nosy person, and it's not spiritual protocol to like go poking around and checking everybody out. What do you look like in the astral? Because it's just a privacy thing. You don't do that to people. Some people do, but it's not polite. But it would be really neat just to see a lineup of Azurites that have been working technique with any other group, just to see what the differences were in the fields. Because sometimes you can walk into this room and it just buzzes. It's really, really neat. You guys are making progress. I don't know if you see stuff on the outside yet, but yeah.
Those are the people that got back to us. I've seen them before, remember?
Yeah.
That was the issue of the ones that didn't want to take it, they were primary service workers and they were going to come away.
There were a couple of those there, weren't there?
See that then when they come back, but no, we're just shining like all these bright bulbs and there's some comparison.
I think we scared them to death. We didn't mean to. We were trying to be nice. Because there's nothing they could do that could harm anything that we need to do. I mean, they could try to walk around and implant and stuff, but, if you know your stuff and you don't have a fear about being implanted, they're just going to go, mushed you. You know what I mean? Don't waste your energy. You need it more than I do. You can love these people. They might not be particularly appreciative of you. I don't think they appreciated us being there very much. But we had a demonstration yesterday at the United Nations up there at work, and on both sides, actually, and how to turn a negative into a positive. Or at least make it disappear off the mountain. I don't know where they went. Yeah, I was really disappointed. I thought they were still hanging out there. I thought they had more gumption. Yeah, they were the ones that promised to get the crystal back. Yeah, they probably buried it out under the moon with potatoes for 6 months. Oh, yes, the drummers. I bet they were thrilled to have us there. That was so innocent, too, because if somebody had told me, if I had known it was St. Michael's Day or whatever, I don't follow this stuff. I don't pay attention to it. I'm too busy trying to keep track with this stuff, our stuff. But I would have had second thoughts, like, oh, are you sure we should go there? Like, I don't want to be in anybody's face kind of thing. I guess we were supposed to be there because nobody let me know that was, oh, that's the day you're going to be there. Oh. because I might have, like, gotten away. But because I didn't know, it was perfectly innocent, got up there, and then we started seeing this woman. You guys missed out. I really was wishing you were there to watch it. It was really cool. Because she pulls out this crystal wand. It's about this long. It's like a selenite crystal wand. She's doing it. Ooh, and I said, ooh, I used to do that when I was in my medieval period. Yeah. I was pretty good with those wands, too. Yeah, actually, Excalibur is a lot more fun. Especially with lightning bolts. Yeah. But she was running some pretty good frequency, nice blue spirals and stuff up and down the tour. But, I mean, she was very serious, and I respect people, whatever side they're on. When they're devoutly doing their stuff, I respect that. But it was just fascinating to see this manifest. Well, here we are thinking, I hope the buses can get through, thinking, we're going to the tour, but the big one's going to be up at Stonehenge. And all of a sudden, there's a couple people that start walking up, and this really weird feeling. Like, this is before I spotted the woman, right? Before she started doing her stuff. I remember I came over to you and said, I think we got company. There's at least two guys that just came up out of nowhere that are from other councils, and they're not ours, right? And they were like kind of looking at me without looking at me, like doing one of these in the astral, right? Glaring at me saying, uh-oh. So it was just really bizarre. And it was like, sometimes I'm so clueless. It's amazing. Yeah. I think they keep me that way sometimes just because like I said, I would have gotten away. I would say, well, that's not very nice to show up there on their Michael's Day and stuff. I wouldn't want them, I'm not going to crash their grids or anything like that, which we didn't, actually. We polished their sword a little, that's all.